Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So we're going to start a little differently today because we don't have our chair or vice chair. So we are going to start with instructions for Doug, and then we will have a vote for the chair and who will be running this meeting. So Doug, instructions to participate in the webinar.
If it's okay, we'll start with a roll call and
Of
then.
course, I don't do this every day.
Perfect. Good thing you have a good team, right? All right, Commissioner Bradshaw. Thank you. Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Eager.
Here.
Commissioner Falcone.
Present.
Vice Chair Grisby. Commissioner Lugo. Commissioner Lugo.
She's not here yet, but the Pasadena representatives are here.
Commissioner Lugo.
She's not here yet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, she said she's gonna get here at 9:30.
Yeah. I got it. Commissioner Lugo. We're taking a roll. Are you able to speak? Commissioner Lugo. Commissioner Lugo, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. Yep. Yes, we see her phone number on. For whatever reason, she's not able to speak. Commissioner Mann. Commissioner Tavaloni. Commissioner Tiffany. Chair Guardino. Senator Cortese. Assemblymember Wilson. Commissioner Lugo. Commissioner Lugo, we can see your phone number. We've tried to unmute you. We cannot hear you if you're speaking. Senator Cortese. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm here. I don't know if you heard it, but Lugo's representative said that the commissioner is going to be here at 9:30.
Yeah, it's a situation we're working around. We see her on the phone. We've tried to unmute it on our end. We're waiting on her to unmute herself.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lugo, are you on? I'm going to go into the webinar instructions and we'll get back. Hopefully she can get online soon. Welcome to day 2 of the June 2024 CTC meeting in Monterey. If only it was still March, right? Those were good days. The meeting agenda is located on our website at www.catc.ca.gov. All the presentations for today's meeting are also available on the Commission Meetings page of our website under the View, Download Meeting Materials tab. Any document the CTC creates can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov, and we will have them returned to you as quickly as possible. American Sign Language translation is being provided on the webinar for this meeting. You should see the translators on your screen. Spanish language translation is also available. You can access this service within the webinar through the Interpretations tab at the bottom of your screen. For those in the room, translators are available at the back of the room near the coffee if you need some coffee. Please see the clerk, and that's me up here, or use the Q&A tab on the webinar if you have questions about this. Live closed captioning is also available. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of your screen. There are a number of language options available there to choose from. Please note that because we do not have a quorum present in person today, every vote will need to be a roll call vote. If you're on the agenda to make a presentation, we ask that you do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. If you are presenting remotely, we hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation, if you have one. We welcome comments from the public as a part of each item at this meeting. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. Again, that's me up here at the front of the room to let us know you want to comment on an item. For those attending via Zoom, you should see the webinar control panel, likely located on the bottom of your screen. There you will find the raise hand and Q&A tabs. We encourage you to use the raised hand feature as early into the item as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. Commission staff will let you know when it's your turn to make a comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Please be sure to include the agenda item number you are commenting on. Commission staff will read the comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants as they are registered to a specific attendee and can create confusion for staff when multiple folks under the same name are making comments. For all meeting attendees, we ask that you do your best to be concise. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translations. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point in 2 minutes or less. If, for some reason, we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute as needed. Thank you for joining us today. Commissioner Lugo, were we able to connect with you yet?
We have her on Clarissa's phone, so we're gonna have her through the mic say that she's here.
Let me try again.
Commissioner Lugo, for roll call.
She did say she'll be at the site in like 3 minutes.
Yes.
Slight change of plans. We'll wait that 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
For the roll
All right.
call, Commissioner Lugo.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Taylor, we have a quorum.
Okay, let's keep you on.
Thank you, Doug. First order of business is to elect a chair. Do I have a recommendation from our commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we elect Commissioner Eager.
Okay, we have a first from Commissioner Tiffany, a second from Commissioner Cruz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi. You need a roll call?
I need a roll call.
Okay.
We need a roll call. Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Hi.
Commissioner Falcon,
Hi.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo. Thank you. Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you. I will hand it over to you, Chair Eager.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Welcome to day 2 in beautiful downtown Monterey. I hope you all had a good evening and were able to walk out and see the lovely ocean. You know, I did want to start today by thanking those of you who took us on the tour day 1. What we were able to see out in Salinas Valley and the other parts of Monterey County certainly opened our eyes to a lot of the issues that you had here. And you were perfect hosts for us, especially when we got off at the rail station and got to see the history of this beautiful area. So thank you all again for hosting us. And with that, we will start with tab 19 today. It's Kayla. Good morning, Kayla.
Good morning, commissioners. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 19 is the presentation of the draft 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines as an information item. As a reminder, the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program's purpose is to fund freight infrastructure improvements on federally designated trade corridors of national and regional significance on California's portion of the National Highway Freight Network and along other corridors that have a high volume of freight movement as determined by the Commission, including Senate Bill 671 corridors. The Trade Corridor Enhancement Account was established in 2017 under Senate Bill 1 to fund corridor-based freight projects nominated by local agencies and the state. In 2022, the prior cycle of the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program had just over $1 billion in funding available for fiscal years 23-24 and 24-25. 37 projects were programmed for a total of $1,081,066,000. These draft guidelines describe the statutory requirements, policy standards, and procedures for the development, adoption, and management of the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program and Commission procedures and for programming and project delivery. The 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program is the fourth cycle of the program and will fund fiscal years 25-26 and 26-27 for an estimated total of $900 million based on the most recent TCEP fund estimate. Beginning in December 2023, the 2024 program underwent a more than 6-month guidelines development process where staff hosted 5 public workshops, which covered various topics, including but not limited to zero-emission freight and infrastructure, workforce development, community engagement, and lessons learned from previous cycles. All 5 workshops were held virtually, were open to the public, and workshop recordings were posted to the Commission website for viewing afterwards. Workshops were attended by regional transportation planning agencies, local agencies, metropolitan planning organizations, state agencies, private companies, non-governmental organizations, interagency equity advisory committee members, community-based organizations, and various other stakeholders. There was an average of just over 100 attendees at each workshop, and proposed updates were generally met with acceptance and little discussion, feedback, or questions. Staff incorporated any feedback received via workshops, emails, letters, and phone calls where statutorily appropriate, and will continue to do so through the final adoption of these guidelines. During the guidelines development process, staff also held 29 office hour sessions for the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, where we met with potential applicants to provide technical assistance for project nominations. Of these 29 office hours, staff met with 4 different private companies interested in applying for funding for zero-emission freight infrastructure projects. The guidelines development process resulted in the following updates to the draft 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines for Cycle 4, in addition to other updates reflected on Attachment A of this item. Community engagement and the SB1 Transportation Equity Supplement. Naveen covered the updates made to these areas of our guidelines yesterday, so I'll reiterate that updates to these sections further clarify and evolve community engagement criterion response requirements and incorporate additional examples, tools, and strategies for applicants' reference and use in the equity supplement. Applicants may now use existing community engagement plans and activities to respond to the community engagement criterion. The goal of this update is to ensure applicants actively include and engage communities through the life cycle of the project development process. The Commission Senate Bill 1 program's Transportation Equity Supplement is included as Attachment 1 in the Cycle 4 guidelines. Now for workforce development. Applicants must now provide the number and types of jobs created by the project's delivery in response to the economic development and job creation and retention evaluation criterion. Responses must include any workforce development opportunities developed or provided by the applicant. Applicants provided this information voluntarily in previous program cycles. This change requires them to provide this information. And finally, zero-emission freight and infrastructure. We have placed more emphasis on the proactive formation of public-private partnerships for medium and heavy-duty zero-emission infrastructure projects to ensure that statutorily created applicant eligibility requirements are met. A memorandum of understanding between both parties will also now be required with the project application. We have also added additional zero emission sub-criteria and instructions for zero emission freight infrastructure projects. New zero emission infrastructure criterion are the number of electric chargers or hydrogen dispensers, zero emission truck throughput, proximity to the top 6 and national zero emission freight corridors, major routes, key freight locations, and other charging or refueling infrastructure, and residential neighborhoods, size of station land, zoning, and grid readiness. This additional zero emission criterion will allow for a wider variety of freight projects to compete in the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. Lastly, the Clean Freight Corridor Efficiency Assessment, also known as Senate Bill 671, was added as an attachment to the guidelines to encourage alignment with the findings and recommendations defined in the assessment that was adopted by commissioners and submitted to the legislature in December 2023. The draft guidelines are a culmination, the draft guidelines are a culmination of the collaboration between commission staff and our diverse group of stakeholders over the last several months. As previously mentioned, workshop recordings and materials have been and continue to be available on our website for stakeholder reference. The guidelines development process takes a great amount of logistical coordination among commission staff, and I would like to thank the entire Senate Bill 1 team for their support, assistance, and guidance, but especially my TCEP teammates, Matthew Yazgat and Ken Lopez, for their support and encouragement over the last several months. This concludes my presentation of the draft 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines, and I can now take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kayla. Do we have online public comment?
Yes, we do have some virtual attendees indicating they want to comment on this item. I'd like to first call on Sophia Rafikova.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Sophia Afrikova with the Coalition for Clean Air. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines. We appreciate the work the CTC staff have put into developing the guidelines, and we support the proposed changes to require projects to report on the number of jobs created and to only use community engagement plans that are less than 5 years old. We also thank the CTC staff for extending the public comment period to allow comments to be received and incorporated following the release of the draft TCEP guidelines. In a letter submitted to the CTC on Monday, we outlined our concerns with the way the public process was conducted in the development of Cycle 4 TCEP guidelines, namely that the staff did not communicate clearly in advance that they would not be making substantive changes to the guidelines after the workshops had concluded and a draft has been finalized. We strongly appreciate the CTC taking our concerns seriously and reversing that decision. Finally, we want to use this opportunity to urge the TCEP program to prioritize funding projects that transition our fleets to zero emission and build charging infrastructure to support that switch. Diesel trucks continue to be the largest mobile source of air pollutant emissions, generating over half of ozone and particulate matter pollution, despite only representing 6% of road traffic. These emissions tend to accumulate near roadways, which are home to people of color and low-income communities. While the goods movement is necessary for our economy, it is unfair to saddle the burden of environmental and public health harm onto our most vulnerable communities. The CTC has an opportunity right now to uplift both public health and economic prosperity by prioritizing TCEP funding for zero-emission projects. This change would not only bring TCEP in compliance with CARB's Advanced Clean Truck Rule and CTC's own SB 671 assessment, but it would also save thousands of lives from death and disease caused by air pollution and uplift the economy by reducing the number of missed workdays and hospitalizations, all without slowing down the flow of goods. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Do we have other online comments?
Yes, we do. Up next, I'd like to call on Maya Inigo Anderson.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to comment. I'm Maya Inigo Anderson with Communities for a Better Environment. And at CBE, we appreciate the staff members' work on these important guidelines. We welcome the new zero emission charging criteria and the guidelines and would like to urge the Commission to consider even strengthening those guidelines. We would also like to urge the Commission to prioritize the following equity-related recommendations. We kindly request that the Cycle 4 TCEP guidelines and the project rating process give greatest weight ranking to community impact factors, including community engagement and air quality impact. Further, having lived in some of the state's most polluted communities, including Southgate and Los Angeles County, I've seen that local community residents' perspectives are often integral to helping state leaders make sure transportation projects are evaluated thoroughly in terms of local community impact. We would also like to urge the Commission to consider the need for guidelines to specifically protect environmental justice communities from potentially harmful project impacts, such as increasing the footprint of freeways in the most polluted areas of the state, which are often also low-income communities and communities of color, potentially causing displacement and adverse air quality impacts in the most marginalized communities. We also believe that the state should continue on its path to increase zero-emission vehicle infrastructure, and I'm very encouraged that the guidelines are already moving in that direction. And I want to thank you in advance for your consideration. I realize we're in the later stages of the guideline development, but as far as our agency, this is the first that we're becoming familiar with these new guidelines. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maya. We have other online comments?
Yes, we also received some written comments on this item.
Okay.
The first comes from the Electrical Workers Local 11. Dear Commissioners, Chair Gardino, Vice Chair Grisby, and Executive Director Taylor, on behalf of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 11 and the National Energy Contractors Association of Greater Los Angeles, which represents approximately 8,000 union electricians and 350 electrical contractors, I am writing to encourage the Commission to include in the TSEP guidelines a provision requiring that recipients of TSEP funds that involve the installation of electrical vehicle infrastructure meet an electrical vehicle infrastructure training program requirement consistent with California Public Utilities Code 740.20. There is extensive precedent for an EVITP requirement, which ensures EV infrastructure is installed to the highest standards of safety and quality. The California Air Resources Board, Energy Commission, and Public Utilities Commission all require meeting an EVITP requirement when granting public funds for EV infrastructure. EVITP requirements have been adopted by the United States federal government, investor-owned utilities, cities like Los Angeles and Long Beach, ports, and many more entities. EVITP is a collaboration of industry stakeholders, including automakers, electric vehicle supply equipment manufacturers, educational institutions, utilities, and other key EV industry stakeholders. It is an open program available to all state certified general electricians. There are currently more than 5 times the number of EVITP certified electricians needed to meet the state's 2030 EV goals. Thank you for your consideration. We have one other written comment we received at this time. It comes from William Walker. He writes, "Good morning, Commissioners, staff, interagency leadership, attendees, and Ms. Kayla. Many thanks for your incorporation of Equity Advisory Committee input. Looking forward to strengthening the equity frameworks for TSEP and making equity supplements more primary in future cycles. Thank you, William Walker, EAC Chair." And that concludes all comments received for this item.
Thank you, Justin. We have 3 comment cards for in the room, Maura Tomei, Jackie Mata, and Kenneth Cow.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mara Toomey with the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. AMBAG wants to express our support for the draft TSEP guidelines as presented by Commission staff. We believe the proposed revisions enhance and clarify the process and requirements. In particular, we believe the additions to the equity engagement sections are critical and will promote projects that best support the needs of our communities. We also want to thank the Commission staff for all their hard work on the guidelines. We appreciate the multiple workshops and the opportunity for robust discussion. As a small rural agency, we especially appreciate that the workshops were held in a virtual format, allowing us to fully participate in all workshops with minimal costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie? Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Commissioners. Jackie Mata, representing Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. And SBCAG would like to thank CTC staff for a very inclusive, transparent, and collaborative process during the SB1 workshops for the development of the SB1 Cycle 4 program guidelines. SBCAG supports the new additions to the guidelines, which provides more clarity to applicants And we also appreciate the SB1 office hour meetings that staff held for more one-on-one time with applicants to discuss their projects. SBCAG looks forward to applying in this upcoming cycle of SB1, and we thank the CTC for their partnership. Thank you.
Morning, Kenneth.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kenneth Cow with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. I just wanted to reiterate my comments from yesterday as well. I know you had dinner and a lovely rest next to the ocean, so sometimes you might forget, but that's okay. I just wanted to say I did want to continue to support the staff's work related to all the guidelines here, holding workshops in virtual format, and really wanted to also put my comments behind Mara's comments as well. She did it very succinctly and eloquently. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
No, we did not receive any other comment for this item.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Just to thank the staff. I know that you have done extensive outreach and not just in those virtual formats, but one-on-one. Anybody having questions or comments, y'all called them directly. And I know that's difficult with so many different programs that we have going on. So I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I know you've reached out to every single entity that needed information from you. So keep up the good work and thank you so much for what you do. Okay, Commissioner Lugo.
Thank you, Chair. And my apologies for holding us up a little bit this morning. I tried to join from the bus and, my phone just couldn't handle it. So appreciate everybody's grace as we got started. I just wanted to comment and say I really appreciate the public participation in the comments on these guidelines, in particular in the areas around community engagement and workforce development, and very much appreciate how staff has incorporated some of the recommendations there. As you all know, I'm very interested in seeing how across our programs we can develop a better understanding of how we account for jobs and job quality. And I think this is a great step in that direction. And, I think there's a lot of thinking we're all doing right now in terms of, what are the roles of our different branches of government. And I feel that here at the commission, it's always a learning process for me as a commissioner to see kind of what's handled by the legislature, what's handled by our transportation agencies. And so appreciate the work from staff and from members of the public to help me understand what it is that we can do to advance here.
Thank you, Commissioner Lugo. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Falcone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to call you that again. Just to, uplift what Commissioner Lugo said about, just the delineation of responsibilities and, certainly being here almost 3 years, I'm still learning as well. So, every time we have these cycles, there's something new to learn about, with the different programs. So definitely, that definitely resonated. I just want to congratulate Kayla for kind of stepping in because I know this is not your permanent role. And it's a heavy one. TSEP is not for the faint of heart. And so congratulations on handling this cycle. I just want to be just to Kenneth's point about, being in the ocean and it's very dreamy here. Can we get a clarification again on the comment period by which folks can provide feedback before August? So I know it's like being a dead horse, but let's just do it. Just one more time with feeling, Matthew, and smile when you're saying it. Thank you.
No problem, Commissioner. Kayla's looking at me because really our process has not changed and the comment period will exist until the August 15th, 16th commission meeting when commissioners have an opportunity to vote on TSEP, congested corridors, and local partnership program guidelines. So I think yesterday I said 45 days, maybe it's 44 today. But the comment period is open and we will accept and consider every comment we receive up until that point.
Great, thank you. And it wasn't, I wasn't intimating that there was a change of process. Just to clarify, for everyone, because this has been a point that's been brought to our attention. So just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to providing comments. So I appreciate your
Thank you.
clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And just to encourage anyone out there in the world listening to us, if you have any comments or questions, please contact, is it you, Matthew?
Actually, it will be me.
Okay.
Kayla's, as you heard yesterday, Kayla has been promoted to local
Yes.
partnership formula program manager. So starting on July 1st, Matthew Yazgat will be the temporary intermittent program manager for the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program.
So contact Matthew. You have any comments or questions? Yes. Yes, Commissioner Bradshaw.
So my fellow Commissioner Falcone talked about maybe beating a dead horse, so I'll do the broken record part of this deal. There's been a lot of conversation thus far in the commission meeting regarding, and the conversation's good, it's where it starts, regarding equity, uplift, underserved communities, openness, and accountability. There's been a lot of talk about accountability of project sponsors and the contractor base. But I want to also, again, illuminate there needs to be accountability on labor as well. And as we look at defining scopes and different things, that it's really crucial. And this is not aimed at staff, because staff does an amazing job. I haven't said it yet. It's the best staff work for the state, without a doubt, that works for the CTC. But as these things come in and towards the public, just hearing from this commissioner, that those who qualified to do the work, licensed to do the work, et cetera, that's the work to do. But adding to that, that the programs of recruitment, retention, mentorship, and outreach, and that part of that, what jobs are created, quality of jobs needs to be, is it open and providing uplift to all folks in California to engage. And I won't put particular organizational names on things, but there's a lot that actually practice that and do that. But I would say we all need to be mindful of any type, and I raised part of it yesterday with a particular program, exclusion. And, a lot of this stuff gets a little bit in the weeds and kind of shorthand construction nomenclature, et cetera. So, just to keep a fine point on that and keep that conversation going. Speaking for my day job as well, need to be held accountable as well to that. So all in. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradshaw. Any other comments or questions?
Just real quick, Madam Chair, I want to echo some of the sentiments shared, and thanks staff for always being very transparent. And we sort of pride ourselves on having an open and very public participation process. And as I think Matthew reiterated, the timelines really haven't changed over the course of the last, I don't know how long it's been, but I think everybody has an equal opportunity to participate in this process. And you share a lot of their comments with us. Obviously, we get a chance to look at those and have conversations with you. And that's what really helps us and guides us as we make these decisions. So thank you guys for your work.
Thank you. We have no other comments, and we will move to tab 20. Shara.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 20 is an informational item to present the draft 2024 Local Partnership Competitive Program Guidelines. The Local Partnership Program provides funding to counties, cities, districts, and regional transportation agencies in which voters have approved fees, tolls, or taxes dedicated solely to transportation improvements. For the competitive program, eligible agencies also include those that have imposed fees dedicated solely to transportation improvements. Funding for the local partnership program is divided into two programs, 40% for the competitive program and 60% for the formulaic program. Tab 20 will focus on the competitive program, and tab 21 will focus on the formulaic program. The 2024 Local Partnership Competitive Program represents the fourth cycle of the competitive program and includes 2 years of programming with an estimated $144 million available. Staff anticipates additional funds may be added to the programming capacity if the program amendments presented later in this agenda are approved. The final amount of funds available for the fourth program cycle will be presented along with the final draft of the guidelines in August. The draft competitive program guidelines were prepared by Commission staff in consultation with the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, Caltrans, Transportation Planning Agencies, County Transportation Commissions, local agencies, and other stakeholders. Following the same process as the 2022 program, we gathered community and stakeholder feedback through a series of workshops and through written letters and emails. The initial Senate Bill 1 program's kickoff workshop was held in December 2023. Following the kickoff, the Commission held 3 public workshops specific to the local partnership program and 1 additional workshop to discuss equity in all 3 SB1 programs. In these workshops, staff presented proposed changes for both the competitive and formulaic guidelines, offered opportunities for stakeholder discussion and comments, and requested attendees to follow up in writing with any other suggestions. Comments received through workshop discussions and written materials were incorporated into the draft guidelines as appropriate. All proposed edits of substance were presented at subsequent workshops, and stakeholders were asked for feedback. Like the other Senate Bill 1 programs, staff in the local partnership programs strive for consensus among stakeholders before accepting edits and then recommending them to the Commission. Therefore, we allowed ample time for discussion during our workshops and highly encouraged follow-up feedback. The workshops were well attended by a wide range of different stakeholders. After each workshop, the PowerPoint presentations and workshop recordings were posted both to the main Commission workshop page and the local partnership program page. Commission staff also hosted 24 virtual office hour sessions between March and May of 2024 to provide technical assistance to potential applicants who wanted to discuss their project nominations. The office hour sessions mostly focused on the competitive program, but we did answer some questions regarding eligibility for the formulaic program as well. We hope to see these agencies achieve formulaic eligibility in the near future. At this time, I would like to briefly highlight some of the proposed changes to the draft 2024 competitive program guidelines. To begin with, the Transportation Equity Supplement discussed by Naveen yesterday has been incorporated into the local partnership competitive program, as has the language on workforce development that both Naveen and Kayla have described. Accordingly, we have updated and strengthened some of the evaluation criteria to be in alignment with the equity supplement and the workforce development requirements. Stakeholder feedback led to our updates in the eligibility section to clarify the types of transit and rolling stock vehicles that qualify as an eligible project. Stakeholder feedback also informed our updates to the project delivery section. Our agency partners and grant awardees are using innovative and progressive project delivery methods, and we want the local partnership competitive program to keep up. We have coordinated with stakeholders to amend the language in this section to introduce a bit more flexibility than the program has had in the past. Another update to note is the new construction signage requirements for all Senate Bill 1 funded projects. Finally, several sections in the guidelines were edited for language to mirror the other Senate Bill 1 programs. Previously, the language used to describe the same policy or evaluation criteria varied between the program guidelines. In the 2024 program, an effort was made by the whole team to provide consistency between the program guidelines in terms of language and formatting. We hope you agree that this change will make the guidelines easier to use and understand for our partner agencies. Before I conclude my presentation, I would like to thank our partners and stakeholders who participated in workshops and provided feedback on the development of the draft guidelines. In particular, I would like to thank VIA Transportation and LA Metro for their efforts to provide thoughtful and informative suggestions that we were able to incorporate in the draft 2024 Local Partnership Competitive Program Guidelines. Finally, I would like to thank our fearless Senate Bill 1 leader, Deputy Director Matthew Yazgat, for his tireless optimism and professional leadership through these guidelines development process. That concludes my presentation of the draft 2024 Local Partnership Competitive Program Guidelines, which are also included in draft form as Attachment A, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We're so glad to hear you're optimistic, Matthew.
Not always.
Do we have any online comments?
Yes, we received one written comment at this time from William Walker. He writes, for tabs 20 and 21, many thanks for your partnership with the EAC. Looking forward to future work. Thank you. And then I just noticed one virtual hand raise at this time. We have Mike Woodman. Mike Woodman, you're now free to unmute and make your comment.
Thank you, Chair Eager, fellow commissioners, Executive Director of the Nevada County Transportation Commission, Mike Woodman. Wanted to comment today and just lend my support for the draft local partnership guidelines. And once again, just to commend your staff on the engagement process and the transparency. They truly set the bar and are a great example to mirror for other partner agencies around the state. So just commend your staff and wanted to lend my support for the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other online comments?
Not seeing any other requests at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Cruz?
Just a quick question. You had mentioned signage for projects that are under construction. Is that a requirement for all projects now?
For all Senate Bill 1 construction projects, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's so vital that the traveling public understands what they're getting for their SB1 dollars in that investment.
Yeah,
So
that is something that Caltrans was implementing, and we updated the language in our guidelines for all 3 programs.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yeah,
And
just
Commissioner Tiffany.
just real quick, I won't belabor it, but just again, similar, but just different pages, raise concerns regarding the exclusive use of MC3 as pre-apprenticeship. So just flagging that. And then total non sequitur, for the Oz guide, I mean, any interest in, federal politics, or maybe we could put you forward, as an alternative. Not that it's necessarily linked to the debate.
Just say. Put him on the hot seat.
Yeah. Commissioner Tiffany.
All right, that's tough to follow. Yeah, this is not really a question, not specific to this local partnership, I don't believe, but there's a section that refers to capital projects that employed advanced and innovative technology and talks about intelligent transportation systems. My fellow commissioners probably know the answer to this, but I don't. With the development of AI, which obviously there's a lot of bad things that I can foresee coming from, but there are potential real benefits to it in a transportation system. I'm just curious, are you starting to see AI being applied in some of the projects that are proposed? Maybe a question for Caltrans, is that something that we are now looking at as AI technology develops?
Thank you, Commissioner Tiffany. So one thing I will say, any project we get in LPP solutions or trade corridor enhancement program are submitted by public agencies, which each have their own vetting process to ensure that the projects are safe and secure, but also advanced. In terms of artificial intelligence, I would also suggest if Caltrans is willing to say how they've been looking into it. We know it's on the horizon, but I don't know that we've seen any projects that are employing AI in our existing program of projects.
I think Mike, you want to? And welcome. I think yesterday we had a switch, bait and switch. So welcome today.
I don't know, being debate, I don't know. But yeah, my pleasure to join you up here. Commissioner Tiffany, Caltrans does currently have 2 of the state's, I believe, 5 AI pilot projects. And so perhaps that's a topic we could share more in the future, but they are focused on safety, safety with vulnerable road users, safety where we're trying to use predictive data to say, hey, can we anticipate where we might want to make, the best use of our investments, as well as from an operational standpoint. And so it's in a very tightly controlled environment. I want to reassure people regarding that. our GovOps team and our California Department of Technology have created a sandbox in order to, just dip our toes into this and see what are the possibilities, and then a report will be written on what we find and experience through this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think we do have to be very careful when we're looking at this, but like I said, it does seem like there may be some benefits in some areas, and so I appreciate that response and that you're looking at it. Thank you.
It might be a future workshop subject. So that's great. Thank you, Commissioner Tiffany, and thank you, Congressman Scott. We appreciate that. Commissioner Falcone.
I have abandonment issues. I don't like it when people leave. Especially to DC. But I get the sentiment, Commissioner Bradshaw. For my edification on the local partnership programs between the two, the formulaic and the competitive, in terms of feedback, were there similarities, any differences from the stakeholders? And I know that you probably heard from the same stakeholders at both workshops, correct? So were there any distinguishing or any differences on what you were hearing?
So in this process, we did not separate the two. So we held joint workshops.
Okay.
And we discussed both the competitive and the formulaic in the same workshop each time. In terms of feedback that we got during the workshop, I mean, they were specific to the subject that we happened to be discussing, whichever program it was at the time. A lot of the updates are similar. The difference between the formulaic and the competitive in terms of language is that things that and you'll hear this in my next talking points, but the language that we use for the competitive is a little bit stricter. It's more, we're using the word must, or we're using, we're making them requirements. Whereas the formulaic, it's like, we'd really like you to do this. And so we're going to highly encourage it, but it's not a requirement like it would be in the competitive program.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into tab 21.
I did that on purpose. Thank you.
Okay, reading glasses on. Okay, tab 21 is an information item to present the draft 2024 local partnership formulaic program guidelines. The local partnership formulaic program only provides funding to counties, cities, districts, and regional transportation agencies in which voters have approved fees, tolls, or taxes dedicated solely to transportation improvements. The imposed fees that I discussed previously only apply to the competitive program. As previously described, funding for the local partnership program is divided into two programs. 40% goes to the competitive program and 60% goes to this program, the formulaic one. The 2024 local partnership formulaic program represents the 5th cycle of the program, and like the competitive programs, will include 2 years of programming with a minimum of $216 million. Staff anticipates additional funds may be added to the programming capacity if the program amendments presented later in this agenda are approved. We will also be rolling over some incentive funds, so that will add to the dollar amount. The final amount of funds available for the 5th program cycle will be presented along with the final draft of the guidelines at the August Commission meeting. Because the process for developing the draft formulaic program guidelines was just described with my presentation on the draft competitive program guidelines, my presentation for tab 21 will not describe the process and will focus instead on the recommended updates to the formulaic program only. I would like to briefly highlight some of those proposed changes to the draft 2024 local partnership formulaic, the formulaic program guidelines now. The draft guidelines are included in the tab 20 meeting materials as attachment A. To begin with, the transportation equity supplement and criteria updates, as well as the workforce development policy that you've already heard about several times with the competitive programs, has also been incorporated into the local partnership formulaic program. While these sections were strengthened in the competitive programs, They are just being introduced in the formulaic program and are highly recommended rather than being required. Several sections in the draft guidelines have language updated to be more consistent across the Senate Bill 1 programs. However, the formulaic program guidelines have more flexibility than the competitive programs, and therefore the updated sections use softer language. For example, we might use the word should instead of must when incorporating a strict competitive program policy. Like the local partnership competitive program, the formulaic draft guidelines have incorporated updates in the eligibility section regarding transit and rolling stock projects, as well as the project delivery section based on stakeholder feedback. The formulaic program guidelines also have the same project signage updates requirements as the competitive programs. One change that is unique to the formulaic program is the document known in the 2022 cycle as Appendix A. It is now Appendix C in the 2024 draft formulaic guidelines and is a list of all eligible taxing authorities. Previously, Appendix A only listed the names of the agencies. The new Appendix C also includes the name of the qualifying tax measures and the dates of expiration. This information is valuable because the fund distribution for each eligible agency is in large part based on the information included in this appendix. Many thanks go out to the previous formulaic program manager, Anya Allenbacher, and our program analyst, Benjamin Walker, for putting this detailed appendix together. Finally, the draft formulaic fund distribution has been posted as a yellow for this meeting. This is also noted as attachment B for tab 21 in the meeting materials for today. We wanted to confirm our numbers before posting and took a few extra days for verification. As we continue to refine the calculations, we have actually found more edits. So stay tuned. We will be releasing a revised fund distribution on the local partnership program website in advance of recommending a final draft for adoption at the August meeting. Also, please note that the fund distribution does have some items noted as pending because they are on the June agenda, and the funds will not be returned to the program until after commission approval. Before concluding my presentation, I would like to thank our partners and stakeholders who participated in the workshops, provided feedback on the development of these draft guidelines, and had nothing but praise for the team yesterday and today. I would also like to thank Anya Allenbacher, the previous formulaic program manager, who prepared many of the formulaic program updates early in the process. And as I conclude the Senate Bill 1 2024 draft guidelines presentations for all of the programs, I would like to extend a few words of deep and sincere gratitude for my fellow Senate Bill 1 program managers, team members, and our patient executive management team for the hours of coordination, document review, and final editing of these and all the Senate Bill 1 2024 draft guidelines. Finally, I would like to take a moment to commend our leader and future politician, Deputy Director Matthew Scott. I have had many good leaders during my almost 20 years in the transportation industry, and Matthew is by far one of the best. Not only does he understand this program and the value it brings to the people of California, but he also understands the value of clear and transparent government. He has made sure at every step of the process to remind us, his team, that we need to post our edits early, to ask for stakeholder feedback, and he follows up to be sure we've shared our meeting materials after the fact. Along the way, he's taken every opportunity possible to boost and support us as professionals. So on behalf of the entire team, I'd like to say a wholehearted thank you to our Senate Bill 1 Deputy Director, Matthew Scott. And this concludes my presentation.
Those of you who can't see, he's beet red up here. We see it here. Thank you. Do we have any online comments?
I do not see any requests to comment on this item.
Anybody in the room here? No? Okay. Any of our commissioners or our virtual or commissioners that are virtual? Oh, all right. Thank you so much.
wait, I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a light. Yes.
Yeah,
Commissioner Falcone.
Well, no, just because LaShara kind of anchored everything. So, just wanted to tie a nice bow around all of your team's work. And again, I mentioned the word bellwether yesterday, and that is a reflection of all of your collective work that you've done on SB1. That was very purposeful in the remarks yesterday. And so, you know, you guys have done an astoundingly wonderful job in this whole process. I've been kind of following it intermittently through your workshops and your updates, and you know, really want to uplift you all for all the work that you've all done. Matt, you really can't go anywhere. However, Commissioner Bradshaw just gave you a pre-endorsement. That's huge. I mean, you threw the gauntlet, brother. So, but yeah, congratulations to you all. Really proud of you guys. We're all very proud of you, and you know, really, I do want to see smiles in your faces because, I mean, I know it's been really heavy and taxing, but you're doing the right thing for the state, and so you should really be, you know, really lifting yourselves up for all the work you guys have done. So congratulations. Yeah.
All right, we will move on to tab 22. Rebecca.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 22 is an action item to adopt the 2025 Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program guidelines. The guidelines describe the policy, standards, criteria, and procedures for the development, adoption, and management for the second cycle of the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program. Staff brought forward a draft version of the guidelines at the May Commission meeting. Since that meeting, Commission staff have made 2 minor and clarifying additions to the guidelines. Firstly, in Section 5, entitled Eligible Facilities, the updated State Highway System Project Impact Assessment Form has been included and hyperlinked for easy access. This form will be required for applicants seeking funding for projects on the state highway system. Secondly, in Section 29, titled Project Signage, there's an added requirement that signage must also include the Commission's logo. Upon adoption of these guidelines, the second cycle call for projects will be officially open and posted. Applications will be due by midnight, Friday, August 30th. The second cycle will provide $90.7 million in federal funds from the Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation Formula Funding. And the cycle will encompass fiscal years 2026-27 and 2027-28. I would like to thank the numerous stakeholders who have contributed to the development of these program guidelines with their enthusiastic and supportive engagement. Staff recommends your approval of the 2025 Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program guidelines as proposed in the attachment to the book item.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have any online comments?
We do not, we do
Oh,
have a
we do.
request. I'd like to call on Mike Woodman.
Thank you. Mike Woodman, Executive Director of the Nevada County Transportation Commission. Chair Eager, fellow commissioners, just wanted to speak to you today in support of the final LTCAP guidelines and thank Rebecca Light and the CTC team once again for the public engagement efforts surrounding the development of the guidelines and truly having an open and transparent process. So lend my support and thank you again to the CTC team.
Thank you, Mike. Any others?
I'm not seeing any other request to comment at this time.
Okay, then in the room, we have Shelley Kwan. Good morning.
Good morning. Shelley Kwan with LA Metro. LA Metro supports the 2025 Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program guidelines and especially appreciates the update to the Community Data Tools Appendix, which now recognizes transit users as a community that is vulnerable to climate threats, such as extreme heat events. We look forward to this important funding opportunity and hope that by putting forward applications now, we can demonstrate the need for continued and increased funding for climate adaptation to protect vulnerable infrastructure in California. Thank you.
Any others in the room?
Chair Eager, I've got Yvonne Garcia from Butte County Association of Governments, ditto to Mike Woodman's comments.
How profound. Yes, thank you. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Any virtual comments from our commissioners or ex officio? We just want to say also a special congratulations to Rebecca. I know you can breathe after we vote, but you did a wonderful job in getting us to this place. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
And with that, we will take a roll call vote.
Wait.
Oh, I did it. Wait, I need a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, that was Commissioner Bradshaw. Second, Commissioner Falcone. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavoloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Madam Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you. Now you can breathe, Rebecca. Congratulations. We will move on now to tab 23, Beverly.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tab 23 is an action item to adopt the 2025 Active Transportation Program Regional Guidelines for 6 metropolitan planning organizations, including Fresno Council of Governments, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, San Diego Association of Governments, Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, Southern California Association of Governments, and Stanislaus Council of Governments. And please note that this item has yellow and pink attachments, which include minor copy edits to the regional guidelines and some additional documentation. The Commission adopted the statewide 2025 Active Transportation Program Guidelines at its March 2024 meeting. Senate Bill 99 and the 2025 Active Transportation Program Guidelines allow the 10 large metropolitan planning organizations to develop guidelines outlining their regional project selection process and their policies in the NPO component. Regional guidelines must be consistent with the state guidelines, but the NPOs do have discretion in certain areas, such as issuing a supplemental call for projects and adjusting project selection criteria and weighting. By developing regional guidelines, NPOs can encourage applicants to propose projects that advance regional goals. Regional guidelines must be approved by the Commission. The book item provides details on how each NPO tailored their guidelines to advance their regional goals and priorities. I'll just give you a few samples, but the samples I'm going to give you are by no means exhaustive. They're in the book item and in the regional guidelines. So Fresno Council of Governments scores on consistency with local and regional active transportation plans. The Sacramento Area Council of Governments scores on alignment with local economic prosperity goals. San Diego Association of Governments scores on the location of the project in relation to the regional safety focus network. The Santa Barbara County Association of Governments includes an additional disadvantaged community definition from their Connected 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. The Southern California Association of Governments includes priority equity communities as an additional definition of disadvantaged communities. And the Stanislaus Council of Governments scores on the project's ability to advance goals from the Regional Transportation Plan. And I'd like to thank the staff at the Metropolitan Planning Organizations who worked on these guidelines, as well as the guidelines that were adopted at the March and May meetings. So that includes San Joaquin and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. So I want to thank them all for their hard work and partnership on the Active Transportation Program. There's too many of them to name, but I really appreciate all of you. So staff has reviewed the regional guidelines and finds them consistent with the statewide guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the 2025 Active Transportation Program regional guidelines for the 6 previously mentioned metropolitan planning organizations.
Thank you, Beverly. Good job. Do we have any online comments?
Yes, thank you. Do you see one of our virtual attendees with their hand raised at this time? I'd like to call on Holly Dore Westbrook. Holly Westbrook, you're free to unmute yourself and comment at this time. You have your hand raised. Okay, the hand was lowered. So that was the only request that I see at this time from our virtual attendees.
Thank you. Anyone in the room? Any of our commissioners have comments or questions?
Just to make a motion.
Commissioner Falcone.
No, just to make a motion.
Okay,
You're ready.
go ahead.
I make a
I'll
motion
entertain
to
a motion.
support.
Yes. Commissioner Falcone moves.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Bradshaw. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavoloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you all. Thank you, Beverly. At this time, we're going to skip to item 59 and we have Bridget here.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Tab 59 is an informational item, part of our Innovations in Transportation series. I'll be joined by Laura Huizinga, who is the Technical Sales Manager for Lindsay Transportation Solutions, who will be sharing an overview of the Lindsay Road Zipper System. And without further ado, I'll invite Laura up to the podium to provide her presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I'm Laura. I work for Lindsay, formerly known as Barrier Systems. You may have heard that name before. We're based in Rio Vista, California, where we manufacture our barrier transfer machines and movable barrier systems. Next slide, please. So movable barrier is not new to California. We actually just ran this recently. You've had 28 construction projects using this system since 1998. So we've been around for a while and you've been a long-term user of this system. And these have spanned from various districts. I think we've got 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 that have been the users of this system for construction projects. And we have 4 managed lanes here in California as well. The oldest being the Coronado Island Bridge, California I-15, Golden Gate Bridge, and then we have our bike path, shared use path on the Richmond San Rafael Bridge. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of technical information, but I promise you I'm not going to focus on this long. Here are the main components of the system. So we have barrier that's not anchored to the roadway, but it does meet all current crash standards and requirements such as MASH, which is a really technical thing, and crash testing is fun, but we're not going to go into that today. But it meets all the current standards. And we have our barrier transfer machines that lift up the barrier and move it over and set it back down. We do have crash attenuators that are attached to the end of the barrier so that it is protected from any potential impacts to that approach end of the barrier. And the system is used widely for construction and managed lanes. And we're going to talk about 3 different construction applications that you've done here in California. Next slide, please. The first is the most recent, and thank you to Caltrans for providing this video. This is from State Route 87 that just completed, this project just completed. The use of movable barrier on this project was primarily safety. The type of project that this was normally would use channelizing devices, or historically would use drums or cones to provide nightly lane closures, which that has some inherent safety concerns, not only for the workers that are working in that work zone, but also for the motorists that are driving past. So Caltrans and California has a pretty staunch view on safety and looking to include and incorporate any safety mechanisms they can for positive protection. So movable barrier in this application was used to replace those drums or cones to provide a nightly lane closure. So they have a barrier separated lane closure, safe for the workers and safe for the motorists driving past. But in the morning or before the morning commute, the barriers moved back to the shoulder. So we're also maintaining mobility for the corridor. So it's really a nice safety upgrade that still gives you that flexibility for those off-peak lane closures. So you're not really impacting that morning or nightly commute. Next slide, please. The next slide that I have is the Doyle Drive bypass. Now, this is a different application. So this project predated my involvement with Lindsay in California, but this was a rebuilding of the Doyle Drive roadway after the Loma Prieta earthquake. And the corridor looked at a lot of different ways to maintain mobility while they were doing the seismic retrofit and reconstruction. Many of those options considered alternate bypass routes. The option that was selected was to create the new bridge or the new roadway and use movable barrier to separate bidirectional traffic.
And using movable barrier gave you the ability to have 3 lanes into San Francisco in the morning, in the morning, and then the barriers moved over, which they showed that in the slide, to provide 3 lanes out in the afternoon with 2 lanes in the off-peak. Now, this application really requires you to have a directional traffic flow, more people going one direction in the morning or night, and then back so that the barrier can be moved. The reason that this makes sense and really made sense for this project is it saves a lot of time and money. And when I talk about a lot of time and money, that can vary project by project, as you can well imagine. But for this one, the information that I was provided was it saved a couple of years for construction and a couple $2 billion because you didn't have that impact to traffic. So that includes not only hard costs, but soft costs as well. Next slide. The last example I'm going to share with you are a couple of accelerated construction examples, and these are from a little bit further south in California. The image on the left is from the DeVore Rapid Rehabilitation Project, and the image on the right is 710 in Long Beach, California. And both of these applications looked at closing one half of the roadway and moving traffic to the other side to facilitate a short but really condensed construction time period. So for the I-710 project, that was 55-hour weekend closures. So the barrier was moved over to provide a barrier separation between bidirectional traffic. So in this case, we went from 4 lanes in each direction to 2, but while that's an inconvenience to the motorists, it allowed them to get the work done really, really quickly and safely, which we love that for the safety of our workers and the motorists too. So in that particular project, they had 10 weekend closures, 5 in either direction, and the work was done. A lot of times I hear in the industry, it's called the ripping the Band-Aid method. It may not be fun and it might hurt a little bit, but long-term, it's over quicker and you have a great application. The DeVore project was a little bit different in the fact that instead of weekend lane closures, it had 2 210-hour closures. So that's 8.75 days. And I know it seems weird, like why 8.75? But in these types of condensed projects, and I'm sure Mr. Keever could tell you, every minute is planned out. So we really do look at those time closures. So the movable barrier here was used similar to that Doyle Drive, 3 lanes in the peak direction, 2 in the non-peak, and be able to be flexible to accommodate that traffic flow. The benefit here, and I love this picture because they show pouring concrete on the back of a dump truck. That may not be the way we normally do it, but you're able to do it here because you have that full closure. They were able to get this job done in 6 weeks total. 2 210-hour timeframes, 1 on one side, 1 on the other, in lieu of a normal 10-month construction timeframe if you did this during normal construction means and methods. So this really is helpful to facilitate mobility during accelerated construction. Now, movable barrier is not magic. You could use static barrier or static K-rail in any of those applications, but the beauty of movable barrier for these types of applications is the speed in which we're able to transition from going to your normal travel patterns into that construction condensed time frame. And then in the DeVore project, having that movable median to provide extra lane. Next slide, which is my final, thank you for letting me be here today. Are there any questions that I can entertain?
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we did receive one written comment during the presentation. It comes from William Walker. He writes, "I'm very interested in how your firm provides presentations like this to local community groups. Is there a pipeline for a North Richmond or Boyle Heights resident to gain skills to run a firm or help to build these barriers? Is your organization committed to recruiting non-traditional candidates into your firm to build transportation projects that likely traverse their neighborhoods?" Thank you.
That's a really great question. The first one's super easy. My contact information is there. Call, text, or email, and I'd be happy to talk to you about facilitating a local presentation. The other one about involvement, totally open to local involvement, just depends on what they're looking for, and I'd be happy to entertain that conversation offline. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from our in-person or virtual commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Falcone.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Just from the perspective of safety, this thing keeps falling. Sorry. What kind of alert system do you have to kind of I don't want to say forewarn, but caution drivers that there's an adjusted lane and that they should be ready for the K-rail and
That's
adjust accordingly?
That's a great question, and I didn't touch on that, so I'm so sorry. So normally for the construction applications, you'd have the same normal signage and advanced warning taper of drums or cones showing you that that lane is closed. So for the State Route 87, left lane closed ahead, the left road work ahead, left lane closed ahead, and then the merge symbol. So it's very normal and uniform. It's in compliance with the Uniform Manual of Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD. So you may not necessarily know that the barrier is moving as a motorist. You would just say, oh, there's a left lane closed. I should probably get out of that lane and move to the other. For the managed lanes, that's handled a little bit differently, and everyone is a little different case by case. Sometimes it's automated signage as opposed to the traditional, the signs that you'd flip up or the drums or cones that you'd pull into place. But great question. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was particularly interested in, you gave an example of where the barrier was moved from morning to evening because of the, directional traffic. Is that something that, I mean, I can certainly see the benefits for construction, but is that something that is being used in different areas? How practical is that on a longer term basis? I'm just curious, you might expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that falls into the managed lane category where in lieu of building additional capacity, the barrier system is used to take advantage of the existing roadway capacity if you have a directional traffic flow. You do that currently on the Coronado Island Bridge, I-15 and Golden Gate Bridge. And we have about 30 of those applications globally. The applicability of those applications largely relies on the traffic engineering analysis that Caltrans would provide or the local areas, and we can support that if there's any areas you'd like to explore that.
How quickly can that transition? And obviously, I think a cost in terms of the daily transition. Can you comment on that? Sure.
The speed of the transfer for a managed lane usually is between 6 and 8 miles per hour. So it's pretty quick. I know I hear a lot of times that we would like it to go faster, but you have to bear in mind that you're moving heavy blocks of concrete or steel encased concrete. So it would have a diminishing returns if you were to go much quicker because you beat up the machine. It really starts to take a toll on it if you're going faster than that 10-mile-per-hour range. So normally the systems are operated in that 6 to 8 mile per hour. And then cost is highly dependent on each project, which we do price out whenever we're asked.
Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Cruz.
Maybe a comment, maybe a question, but I already want to thank you for the slides on safety. Especially in an active construction zone, we've seen upticks, obviously, in fatalities and injuries due to speeding, texting, drunk driving, and we hear about them all the time. And most of those are our members who work in those construction zones. I know a couple of years ago we worked on a bill that would require positive protection barriers in the specs for Caltrans when they put projects out to bid. Are you seeing, and maybe the question to Mike, more of those policies adopted and those construction zones being improved as far as safety in the state or in your respective area?
I don't want to speak for Caltrans. I can tell you that they are exploring movable barrier more than historically they have. I can tell you across the US, California is one of the leaders in the safety realm. I can tell you that I get the opportunity to work with states that are focusing on safety, and I have a handful, maybe 5, that are starting to use movable barrier more frequently in conjunction with other options. Closing the road is a great example. If you can close the road, oh my goodness, do it. the mobility impact might be huge. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind. But California is a leader in the safety and considering that. And I do believe that your DIB 91, if I said that correctly, was instrumental in that.
Chief Deputy Director Keever, you've been dying to get in here.
It's a great topic and one that we're passionate about. So one, I want to thank you for the presentation and for the collaboration as we're doing more of this. This is one of many tools. To Commissioner Cruz's point, we have work with industry and we've been updating our policies as well as our construction specifications to look at a lot of different ways. So some of it is, agree, if we can do a 55-hour closure, get in, get out, protect people, we're looking at that. When is that possible? Movable barrier, mobile barrier, more attenuators. I think we're looking at even those that are in the attenuators, we're looking at having those tethered to try to reduce the exposure of our own workers that are providing the protection to the people that are out there. So we're doing more and more of this. And I just want to express my appreciation, one to Tim Sobelman. He's gone out to look at these systems himself. He's helped to us in communicating. I want to thank the commission for your support in putting these systems out there on our projects because we are in that transition. So I very much appreciate the partnership.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you so much. This was very interesting and we're excited to see where we go from here.
Thank you. And thanks to Caltrans for your partnering on this too. It really is wonderful to see an agency in a state work towards work zone safety, which I'm very passionate about. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will go back to tab 24. Tim.
Thank you. Is it acting chair? I'm not sure. Current chair.
Queen.
Oh. My apologies. Commissioners, tab 24 is an information item related to the Transportation Asset Management Plan Annual Performance Benchmark Report. The California Transportation Asset Management Plan and Senate Bill 1 each established 10-year performance targets for the State Highway Operations Protection Program primary asset classes. To measure progress towards meeting the defined performance targets, the Commission adopted an addendum to the SHOP guidelines, calling on Caltrans to develop annual benchmarks with future condition projections and to report annually to measure progress made for each of the assets towards achieving the 10-year targets. Mike Johnson, the State Asset Management Engineer for Caltrans, is here to provide a presentation on the 2023-24 Annual Performance Benchmark Report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Tim, for the introduction. It is appropriate, I guess, that we're here in Monterey and that we have a little bit of an internal photo competition for the cover photo for this every year. And this year happens to feature the Central Coast here. So that was not deliberate. It just happened that way. But it did strike me as I'm looking. Next slide, please. So what is the performance benchmark report? This is our 7th report. It's hard to believe we're 7 out of 10 years through SB 1 already. So nearing the 3/4 point of Senate Bill 1 10-year time horizon. What is this? It's an annual report, as Tim mentioned, required by commission guidelines. In this report, we report out on our core assets and supplementary assets as defined by the commission relative to the targets that were adopted by the commission back in 2017. We look at the most recent information that we have available on the condition of all these assets. We look at ongoing deterioration as well as accomplishments through our projects. And this performance benchmark report shows our progress towards those goals. Next slide, please. So within the report, there are a series of charts similar to the one shown on the left. And it has a number of features to it. You'll see a colored line, green in this case, and that indicates actual measured conditions for those, for the portion of the line that has solid dots, and then projections for the portion of the green line that has the hollow dots. So you can see we're starting to get a lot fewer projections. This is a little bit older version. But below that, you'll see a gray line and you'll see some shaded areas. The gray line is what we thought we would be tracking back in 2017. So in other words, we've got 10 years in front of us. We're trying to get to a goal. Our asset management framework is very performance driven. The projects that come before you are specifically tailored to achieve these targets and frankly, about 30 others. But you can see here that we're tracking pretty well with what our predictions were. In this case, we're a little bit better and have been since the beginning, but really on kind of pace for what we expected. Also for each one of the asset classes and conditions, there's a table. The tables show a comparison of this measure compared to the previous one. Green is good. That means things got better. Sometimes better is up, sometimes better is down. It gets a little confusing. So just green is good, red is not so good. But the table just compares what we did in the last year. Next slide. So within asset management, we're subject to a number of regulations. So we had Senate Bill 486 that said, we're going to implement asset management and gave the commission certain authorities relative to that, including the establishment of performance measures and targets. Additionally, we had Senate Bill 1, and Senate Bill 1 had many of the same performance measures, but there were some that were different. And specifically, I just want to call out bridges because that's the most notable one that is different between the two. So I'm going to talk about both, try not to confuse folks here, but the first group is Senate Bill 1 metrics. We are on track in all metrics related to Senate Bill 1. So that's really important. 7 years in, projects in the shop are programmed through the end of the 10-year reporting period on Senate Bill 1. So we have a pretty solid understanding of what we expect to happen through the end of the 10-year period. At this point, it's probably premature to say promises made, promises kept, but I think as we get closer and closer, there's less opportunity for us to, to have things go in a different direction. And right now, everything looks really positive. In fact, for the bridge metric, which I want to call attention to here, because I'm going to talk a lot about bridges here in the next few slides. Under SB 1, this is the only performance metric in state law that deviated from the metrics that were established in the asset management plan and the state highway system management plan. So here, what the legislature said in Senate Bill 1 is, we want you to fix an additional 500 bridges above a baseline of what we were doing prior to Senate Bill 1. As of today, we have greatly surpassed that 500 bridge mark. So in that particular metric, because it was a count of bridges fixed, we can say, yes, we're done. We completed that as promised to the voters of California. Next slide. So in addition to Senate Bill 1 performance metrics, we have federal metrics under federal regulations, as well as the commission adopted targets. And thankfully, those are the same. So we don't have multiple competing metrics, but it is sometimes hard. It's like threading a needle to be able to meet all of these different constraints that we have. But here you'll notice for bridges, it's the one metric that's different than in the previous group. And here we're saying that we're monitoring this. And I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about why that's the case. Next slide, please. So first, talking about pavement. Next slide. What we see with pavement is, fractions of a percentage changes from one year to the next. It's pretty consistent at this point. I will say that pavement anchored projects, that doesn't mean all the money goes to pavement, but the projects that pavement is the largest component of command about $2.3 billion annually in investment. And as long as we continue that investment, I think we'll have no trouble meeting the Senate Bill 1 targets. We're currently about 1.4% poor. Senate Bill 1 calls us to have no less than 2% poor. So we've got a little bit of a cushion there going into 2027. I do want to just reiterate here that this doesn't mean we could take our foot off the gas. Without that investment in pavement on an annual basis, these numbers would turn around very, very quickly. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that we can just, just start relaxing. Next slide. Okay, bridge projects and progress towards bridge. Next slide, please. So first, related to the Senate Bill 1 metric, we show in this graph stack columns. There's kind of a light green that represents what we would have done without Senate Bill 1. And then there's the dark green section. That is really what we're measuring. Our target under Senate Bill 1 was to fix an additional 500 bridges. We're at almost 1,100 bridges fixed. By the time Senate Bill 1 completes, we will probably be on the order of 3 times what Senate Bill 1 called for in terms of bridge fixes. Okay, so everything's great with respect to Senate Bill 1. Next slide. Sorry, next slide, please. So looking at the commission adopted metrics, the federal metrics, these are more looking at the entire population of bridges and the condition associated with that entire population. So while we fixed 1,100 bridges since Senate Bill 1 passed, we still see that we're not making as much of a dent in this poor bridge from a network perspective as we'd like. And this is really what is driving our asset management and our performance work right now in terms of what are we putting forward to the commission in terms of projects in the shop. So we look at this gap, we do this every other year, and we reset targets based on performance gap analysis for what should come in the subsequent shop. So here we saw we lost about 1/10 of a percent, which seems kind of small. Although as we look forward, we do see much better outcomes, and this is largely because of some actions that this commission took about 3 years ago, setting up a reservation that allowed us to go in and really focus on the primary driver of these poor bridges, which is cracking in the riding surface of the bridges. And I do want to reiterate, and we make this very clear in the report, but for those that aren't going to read the report, poor bridge is a classification that is set up based on National Bridge Inspection Standards. It does not mean these bridges are unsafe. In the majority of cases, 85 to 90% of the bridges in California that are considered poor just mean that the concrete on the riding surface has cracks that are small, but the density of those cracks is hitting certain thresholds that require us to take some action. But again, doesn't mean anything's unsafe. We have a very, very active bridge inspection program. And if we find anything that's unsafe, the department will take immediate action through a director's order or an emergency project. So poor does not equal unsafe. That's really important. Next slide. So digging in a little bit deeper, and I know this is getting a little technical, but I wanted to convey to the commission the degree at which we are monitoring and tracking this. So this particular chart is a distribution of age of bridge by surface area and condition. So you can see that the majority of the poor bridges are between 55 and 70 years of age. Okay? And you'll also notice that the bulk of the inventory of bridges is between 55 and 70 years of age. That is not an accident. That is the interstate boom of the 1960s and early 70s. So it just so happens that the average age of a bridge replacement in California is about 60 years. So one of the things that we're seeing, or one of the dynamics, is that the the inventory that we're working with, it's not obviously static. We're literally on the mountaintop right now in terms of inventory. And I think that is influencing in part the degree at which, we're able to make significant progress on the bridge metric. Next slide. When we look at and isolate what bridges are poor in the state and where are those poor bridges, there's about 12 million square feet of poor bridge in the state of California on the state highway system. About 65% of it is already in design or construction. There's another 20+% that is currently going through formal planning and will become part of the 2026 shop when you see it. But really, we kind of focus upstream of that in that 10% that are not in projects. Those are the ones we want to get and bring forward to the commission for future projects. And the pie chart on the right really just kind of focuses on that 10%. Most of these have been identified within the last 12 months. So as we're doing inspections, we're identifying poor bridges, we're getting them in projects quickly. In fact, we do an annual report to the commission. Sometimes a bridge will go poor and actually come out of being poor before I report to you the next time. And a perfect example of that is the Santa Monica Viaduct Bridge with the fire. So we had the fire, the bridge went poor, we went out and took care of the bridge, and now it's no longer poor. So within the last 12 months, that went in and out. And, so what you're seeing today is really a snapshot in time that is reflective of all the work that the department's doing. Next slide. So one of the things that we look at is what is the rate that bridges are becoming poor relative to the rate we're fixing them? So it becomes kind of an inflow, outflow problem. And if we're fixing more than is becoming poor, we're making progress towards our target. If it's the other way around, then we're losing ground. And so, you can see the results for the current report. We fixed a little bit more than became poor. We'd like to see the green get considerably bigger than the red. And I think we'll see that in the next years because of actions we took about 3 years ago. Next slide. Transportation management system elements. These are the things that help improve our operations on the system. Next slide. So this one's kind of an interesting graph in that, we had a prediction of where things would go. We're kind of crossing over and crossing back, weaving around, but we're staying within that shaded Monte Carlo uncertainty band that goes along with this chart. And, we have some significant projects that are coming for delivery soon, and those will result in significant improvements in these numbers going forward. So we see this meeting the SB1 and asset management targets by 2027. And then finally, under next slide, please. Under our culvert program, next slide. Culvert program is really big. And because it's really big, we don't see a lot of wild swings one way or the other from year to year, but things are looking really good. We're surpassing goals, and we've got quite a bit of culvert work lined up in the shop. So this one looks like on a cruise path for meeting the requirements. Next slide. So part of our annual benchmark report, we summarize accomplishments to date. This question comes up a lot. Well, what did we get from Senate Bill 1 or the investments? And you can see it's considerable. Almost 17,000 lane miles of pavement have been fixed since Senate Bill 1 passed. We talked about almost 1,900 bridges. So there's a lot of work happening out there. And if you drive around, you see it because you see the closures all over the place. That is our transportation system being fixed. That is what Senate Bill 1 was all about. And that's really what our Fix It First approach to our asset management and Caltrans is all about. Next slide. And then I'd like to end with this because Asset management sort of sits at the intersection of funding and delivery because performance lives at the end of construction. Until the construction is done and these assets are re-inspected, we don't actually realize the performance gain. And I just want to show this, that we're over $14 billion of going construction. You know, you look back on that chart, which is 8 years, this is the highest it's been over the prior 8-year period. And so there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of infrastructure fixes that are being imparted throughout the state of California. Next slide. With that, I'd just like to thank the commission and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any online comments?
Seeing any requests for online comments at this time?
Thank you. Anyone in the room? Then I will go to our fellow commissioners, Commissioner Falcone, and then Commissioner Tiffany.
Thank you, Mike, for the presentation. And thank you for clarifying the semantics on the word poor, because it was brought up quite a bit during our briefing. And so thank you. As a public relations professional, messaging is important. I don't know if there is I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it on your report, the definitions, these words.
There's an appendix in there that actually defines all of those measures and what constitutes each one of them.
Okay. Can I make a slight suggestion, maybe to move it up somewhere a little visible on that? Just like this. Yeah. Right. The second point was, so as I drove up from San Diego to Monterey, and I'm a EV driver. And I had to make a decision which vehicle I was going to take. And I had my tires checked. And I had just recently replaced my tires on my EV. And it was already showing some wear. And so the point is that when you're kind of incorporating EVs, and there's going to be more and more folks driving EVs, especially as it relates to the bridges and your pavement, you know, how is that figuring into your planning here?
Well, I think with respect to pavement, the roughness of the pavement is one of the stress measures that's specifically reported. And depending on how rough a pavement is, that could be enough to cause it to be poor or a fair condition under federal criteria. And similarly for bridges, a rough bridge generally would be one that has been patched multiple times or has what we call a spall, but pothole in common terms on a bridge deck. Those things would potentially cause a rough ride. All of those are actually reflected in the condition measures that we have for those assets.
Okay. Are you seeing are you tracking the stress? And I don't know how you do this, but with the increase of battery operated vehicles because of the weight.
Yeah, so that's a tricky question. There is a lot of research in this area. I think this question has come up before. There is a nonlinear relationship between weight and damage to the transportation system. In fact, the research shows it's an exponential factor of 4. That doesn't typically tend to be a significant issue when we're talking about passenger vehicles, but it becomes a much bigger issue when we're talking about commercial vehicles. So that is something that we're looking at. And you sort of have this intersection of 2 policies. We want, clean air and healthy environment. But there may be a price to the infrastructure from that. And I think we're going to have to sort through that. And it's probably more of a legislative question and policy question for the commission.
Thank you.
I'll just add one thing to what Mike has said. That's something we'll be studying in our 251 vehicle weight study.
Mr. Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Falcone's comments. I'm curious about not just the weight of the EVs, which are much heavier. And it certainly will have an impact on the roads, but also with climate change, more extreme weather can make a big difference. I come from Samuel County, which arguably could be the pothole capital of the world in terms of some of these county roads that we drive on. And I know that it can get away from you very quickly if your roads are in, fair to moving toward poor, and they start cracking, and then you have heavy weather, potholes, and once it gets away from you, it's extremely expensive, as unfortunately we know in our county, to get on top of it. So I'm just wondering how you may be taking that into account, projecting, looking forward. Is that part of the dynamic? How you prioritize the different highways? I know you have the 1, 2, and 3, and there's priorities there, but also how you deal with the ones that are in the fair, moving toward poor condition before they get away from us.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Tiffany. That's a great question. I didn't mention in all of this, but as we're closing out the current state fiscal year here, we now have had 2 consecutive years in a row where damage is exceeding about $1.3 billion on the state highway system. For those keeping track, that's about 20% of all available shop dollars on an annual basis. So we are definitely paying attention to this, because as we're putting our transportation dollars to fixing damage, and a lot of that damage is climate driven. Cover photo itself with Rocky Creek, coastal erosion is something that we're seeing, up and down the coast, both on Highway 1 and 101 in different parts of the state. Wildfires and then subsequent extreme rainfall is another area that we're seeing causing a lot of slope instability. So, from an asset management standpoint, if we're having to go fix damage, that's taking funds away from fixing conditions or making improvements to the transportation system. So we're trying to, work hard to get out in front of this through adaptation projects to the system. These adaptation projects can be extremely expensive. And, I think when you look at that, at this point in our plans, we're trying to quantify what that adaptation costs are, but the costs are significantly more than existing transportation revenue would support us funding. And so, this is something that I think, both state and local entities are struggling with it. We talk about locations like Highway 1 in Last Chance Grade up in Humboldt County, and the solution there is a tunnel that, current price tags are in excess of $2 billion. And that's a 1 mile stretch essentially of state highway. Recently drove the entire Marin and Sonoma County coast on Highway 1. And if you're ever out there driving that, you really notice how many retaining walls we have holding back the coastline and holding up Highway 1 in those locations. So, we need to start adapting to these stressors, and you'll see more and more projects coming in. We have recently brought over $400 million in climate adaptation work to the commission, but relative to the total need that we have for climate adaptation, that's a small portion of what the total need is.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're thrilled to see all the green that you're on track going forward. But I guess in contrast to that, this meeting we have I think abnormally high number of time extensions, and some of those are even more than 6 months. If that trend continues, do you feel like you can stay on track to meet all of those goals by 2027?
Yeah, that's a great question. I said our performance is at the intersection of funding and delivery. So, obviously we need to get out and get these projects in construction and get them fixed to realize the performance. We do update this information internally on a quarterly basis. We report it to you on an annual basis. So for example, these allocation time extensions that you'll talk about in a bit, those will be fully reflected after this commission meeting, and it makes adjustments, but I look through them, the areas that I'm most focused on in terms of where we are, bridges I've obviously highlighted here. Those allocation time extensions, there's only 8 bridges in that mix that would affect these condition metrics, and 2 of them were 4-month extensions or less. So I don't see that having a large impact. In fact, I really focus on the large bridges in the state because the metric is area weighted. So we have some very large bridges where delivery is going to be more critical. These are bridges that then in themselves are hundreds of thousands of square feet each. So it's one bridge, it's one fix under the SB1 metric, but it can represent a substantial portion of the overall pour. And so, the department is definitely fast tracking some of these projects like the Vincent Thomas Bridge Deck replacement down in Los Angeles, Stockton Channel Viaduct replacements in Stockton, and there's others. These big anchors are really critical, more so than a smaller bridge, because those large bridges in some cases can equal anywhere from 10 to 50 times the area of these smaller bridges. So we do look at that and really focus on, sort of what are the whales out there, and can, we need to make sure we get these done.
And Chair, if I could take a minute to just add something to what Mike Johnson said. I think we don't have the time to do it here in this commission meeting, but I think it's worth having a product delivery briefing to talk about some of the questions that you're talking about, so we can dive deep and have some more robust discussion about those different things.
I will just add that,
Thank you.
I mentioned the damage, and, I think it's important when damage to the system occurs, it kind of jumps the priority line, because generally these are cases like Rocky Creek where we're cutting off communities. And so, if we're spending $1.3 billion for the last 2 years, each year, in a 2-year period, I mean, you have over $2.5 billion of unplanned work. And that, I think internal to the department, there's some prioritization that's taking place too.
Have any other questions for Mike? Online? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think at this time, we're going to take a little break, and we'll do a 12-minute break and be back at 11:10. Thank you. That is not good. There we go. Filled it. Okay, we are back in session, and we will take up item tab 25. Ahmed, it's all you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Tab 25 is an action item to amend Resolution GO214, procedure for leasing airspace to private entities. The amendment of the resolution will enhance transparency and the Commission's oversight of the the airspace lease program in light of the incident that occurred last year on November 11, where a fire ignited under the Interstate 10 overpass. The fire resulted in the closure of a segment of I-10. This is a vital route that's traversed by approximately 300,000 vehicles daily, whose interruption has had significant economic implication. It was later determined that the fire originated at the airspace lease located near the intersection of 14th Street and Lawrence Street in downtown LA, referred to hereafter as the Lawrence Airspace Lease. At the request of the Director of Transportation, the Office of Inspector General initiated an investigation. Last month, on May 30th, the Office of Inspector General released its audit report on the Lawrence Airspace Lease, where the fire began. The report identified a number of deficiencies related to the management of the Lawrence Airspace Lease, including failure to conduct inspections regularly, inadequate inspections, and a lack of prompt action to address safety risks and violations. Upon reviewing the facts presented by the Office of Inspector General, the Commission determined that the department deviated from the stipulations outlined in the Commission's resolution. To ensure compliance, Commission staff recommends superseding Resolution G02-14 with Resolution G24-14. The updated resolutions mandates the department to submit quarterly reports to the Commission demonstrating compliance with the Commission's resolution, as well as the department's guidelines, procedures, and state and federal laws and regulations. The quarterly report will provide the status of completed inspections and demonstrate the prompt initiation of the necessary administrative and legal actions to ensure the safety and efficiency of the transportation system. Furthermore, the quarterly report will provide an overview of the department's effort in providing the necessary guidance and training to department staff to ensure proper execution and management of airspace leases. The department has received and reviewed the updated resolution, G2414, and the department has made progress toward enhancing the management of airspace leases. Commission staff will continue working with the department on the timing of the first quarterly report to the Commission. Commission staff recommend the approval of the attached resolution G24-14.
Thank you, Ahmed. Do I have any online comments?
I do not see any requested comment from any of our online attendees.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the room? Oh, we have one. Hello, Chair Walker.
Hi, good morning, Chair Eager. Welcome back to your the saddle. And good morning, Commissioner, staff, leadership. William Walker, EAC Chair. And again, speaking on my own behalf, the EAC has not done any discussion of this item, but I live in a neighborhood about a block and a half from Caltrans right-of-way overpass. That overpass has transit on it, and it makes it very difficult in these spaces for the community to engage, because often local agencies don't want to do much around the right-of-way because they know that it'll create another layer of negotiation. And so I'm hoping that with this resolution in the future, finding ways to ensure that communities have a way to, whether it's it doesn't have to be the EAC, but like a body that someone can go to locally and at the district level. I mean, the project in National City and in San Diego County, I mean, they had painted murals on the freeway and there's basketball courts adjacent to the freeway. And I walked under a very lonely underpass in, it was either La Palma or Buena Park, I don't recall, but in North Orange County, it was just a long underpass and could have great activation. So I'm hoping that it's great that the leases will protect the airspace, but also having ways so that folks who want to do more in those spaces can activate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And I'll turn it over to Director Taylor.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate some things that Ahmed said that are really important to our partnership working with Caltrans. And the first is that as we implement what we have proposed before you, we're going to continue to coordinate with Caltrans to determine what makes sense We're going to continue to learn and may amend this resolution again moving forward. And this includes the content and the frequency of the reporting. And at the end of the day, we want to find balance between our oversight role and the efficient use of our collective resources. And so we'll continue to work as we hear, as we communicate, as we talk about the different things that are coming out as we learn more as this rolls out. Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro. Those were certainly some of our questions that we were going to have. So you preempted those questions. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Then I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, who made the motion in the second?
I did.
Bradshaw and Tiffany.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
uh-oh, internet issues. Commissioner Lugo?
Aye.
But I can't hear her.
Perhaps she can just give a thumbs up for aye.
There we go. Thank you. Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. We're still with you, Ahmed. We're going to do information calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, tab 26 through 43 are information items that have been reviewed and found to have no issues raised by Commission staff. Therefore, individual items will not be presented unless specifically requested by a Commissioner. Please make note please make note of the change list for tab 28 and 42. Tab 28 and 37 has had the last minute changes that is not on the change list that I'll be reading into the record. For tab 28, 2 projects instead of 1 project have concurrent time extensions. The additional project that was revised to reflect the concurrent time extension is project 18 with planning and programming number 1530A. For tab 37, project 2 with planning and programming number 9824 has been withdrawn. If there are no questions, that will conclude the presentation of the information calendar.
Do we have any public comment?
We have no request to comment on the item.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioners wishing to pull any of the items? Okay, thank you. We did consent calendar. So now we will go to tab number 60. Welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. Tab 60 is a presentation that will be given by the City of Pasadena to give an update on their progress of the State Route 710 North Stub relinquishment efforts. I just want to clarify that this is not the 710 properties. We have had a lot of 710 properties items at recent meetings. This is the portion of the 710 freeway that was constructed in anticipation of the rest of the freeway. And once the rest of the freeway was not constructed, this stub was no longer needed to feed a giant freeway. And so as a result, in June of 2022, the commission relinquished this stub to the City of Pasadena. And as part of that resolution, the relinquishment resolution, the commission requested that Caltrans come back on an annual basis and present an update on the efforts to reconnect the communities that were impacted by this stub that was constructed. And so we've had one update already. This is the second update, or this is our second annual update since June of 2022. Caltrans has maintained their commitment and their partnership in this effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Gloria Roberts, the District 7 Director, to introduce us to the local partners.
Good morning, Director Roberts. Nice to see you.
Good morning, immediate past Chair Eager, Chair, and now continuing Chair and Queen Eager. Good morning, Executive Director Maestro, Taylor, all commissioners, and Chief Deputy Keeper. So great to be here, and thank you very much for allowing the City of Pasadena the time to update on something that's very positive in terms of being able to relinquish right away back to the City of Pasadena. And so online, we have in our District 7 office, the Honorable Mayor Victor Gordo, as well as the Assistant City Manager, Brenda Harvey Williams, to provide an update on their work in reconnecting Pasadena. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Mayor and City Manager.
Thank you. We hope you can hear us okay.
We can hear you, but not okay. If you could speak up a little bit, that would be great.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and Executive Director Taylor and all commissioners. We're certainly pleased to be back in front of you again to share the most recent progress of the 710 Reconnecting Pasadena Master Planning process. As you recall, the last time we were before the CTC, the City of Pasadena was still in the process of reviewing the RFP for the historic project consultants, as well as the master plan consultant. Since then, we've made great progress and the process has continued as we look to reconnect our community by beginning the master plan process itself. We've hired consultants and are gathering data and engaging our community as we plan for the future. In fact, this past weekend, the city held the first community open house and workshop for the master plan process. It was well attended, well over 200 people, and included engagement activities. We have staff here, Brenda Harvey-Williams, to present more of the specifics, but on behalf of the City of Pasadena, thank you for your partnership and for your support as we look to reconnect Pasadena.
Good morning. If we could go to the next slide, please. Very briefly, our presentation, we want to talk about our community focus and the professional teams who we've hired working on our project so far. So if we can go to the next slide. And you've already heard this brief recap. In August of 22, the Caltrans transferred the title of the property back to Pasadena. And I don't want to go over that, but this is the land that was returned to Pasadena. Next slide, please. And I do want to talk about the work we've done so far. We are taking, as we look to reconnect Pasadena community, we are using a community focus. Next slide, please. And to that end, our city council and the mayor have appointed a 16-member body called the Reconnecting Community 710 Advisory Group. And they meet monthly, and they are the guiding force in determining how we will ultimately make recommendations to the city council of how to use this land. So they're providing input on the vision, land use, massing, circulation, and other urban aspects, and looking at key policy issues, including potential restorative justice related to the freeway expansion. Next slide, please. Just in terms of the professional teams we have working on it, if you could go to the next slide, please. One of the things that's very important to Pasadena is not just to look to the future of what this land will be, but also to look to the past of what it used to be. So to that end, we have a historic portion of the project, and the master plan aims to document the history of what happened to the people, businesses, schools, churches, and other institutions displaced due to the building of the freeway. Next slide, please. And we can just go to the next slide, please. So to that end, we have hired 3 different historians to help document what has been done. The first is a firm called Architectural Resources Group, and they are looking at the historical data setting. So they're looking at what existed before the stub was built, the homes, the schools, businesses, churches, etc. The second part, which we're calling our oral history project, is identifying persons and sources with direct knowledge or experience of the freeway expansion, those who were displaced or relatives of those who were displaced, and compiling an oral history which will ultimately result in a short film, but also having documented what was the heart, the feeling of the people who were displaced. And finally, the last component is the impacts of freeways and other mechanisms on segregation and demographics in Pasadena. This is done by the UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies. And they have done similar work for, I'll note, Caltrans, so we're quite confident in the work that they will be doing for us and are doing for us. Next slide, please. Just wanted to show you for part of our historical project, these are some of the printed materials that are being disseminated in the community as we try to identify those who actually lived in the 710 stub area. And you can go to the next slide, please. So we also have hired a firm to do the master planning process. This firm has been on board with us since January. Their name is Perkins Eastman. They have over 40 years of experience doing planning and creating large-scale mixed-use plans or projects for urban development. And if you can go to the next slide, please. Part of what they've done is, this is our project logo. Everything has been branded with Reconnecting Pasadena because we're really trying to get that part of our story out there. If you can go to the next slide, please. So Perkins Eastman is working on creating the master plan for us that will ensure that all future development in the 710 area meets the city's expectations, as well as our transportation purposes, city council goals, our general plan goals and policies. This master plan will serve as the guiding planning document for the future development of the area and the foundation for the creation of a new area in our city. Next slide, please. I just wanted to spend a quick moment on what the master plan, what our master plan consultant is doing for us. There are 7 things. Their scope of work has 7 deliverables. One is community engagement. Engaging our community is what, as the mayor mentioned, last Saturday they had their first community engagement, and we had over 200 people turn out to share their views on what should become of this land. The second thing that they are doing for us is looking through everything with the restorative justice framework. We are really looking to look to our past for how we what we end up doing for the future. They are also collecting data. Their C objective is data collection, and part of the scope is surveying the existing conditions of the land and providing 3D modeling of proposed solutions. The fourth thing they are doing, or item D, is climate resilient infrastructure plan. Everything we do, we want to provide direction for climate resiliency in our community and prioritize opportunities based on levels of success. Letter E, they are doing an economic study and market demand analysis where they will identify market supported land use options that can help realize the city's economic development goals. Letter F is the mobility and circulation analysis, which will include defining and identifying mobility and circulation options. And finally, the land use options. This will incorporate what is heard from our stakeholders and community members, and will consider elements addressing urban form, community and environmental health, public assets, transportation, and mobility, to name a few. And if you go to the next slide, please. Here we just wanted to emphasize how important, again, community engagement is to our project. And our next slide just covers, next slide, please. Covers our next steps, which includes continued coordination with our stakeholders. Our 710 advisory group will continue to meet. Our city council has formed an ad hoc committee that is also overseeing the project, and we're making quarterly updates to our city council. We look forward to our historical report being completed as the master plan process continues, and finally then environmental clearance. And next slide, please. We would just like to again thank you all. Thank you to all of our state, local, and federal partners who have helped us through this process with the relinquishment and getting to this process. And that concludes our report, and we just want to again just say thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any online public comment?
Yes, I see one virtual attendee with their hand raised at this time. I'd like to call on Sheila Enos. Sheila Enos, I see your hand raised. You've been unmuted. You're free to comment at this time. She has not unmuted herself and has not responded. So beyond that, we have no other request to comment.
Thank you. Do we have any comments in the room? Do we have any comments from commissioners? Thank you so much for the update and information, Mayor Gardo and Assistant City Manager Harvey Williams. We look forward to your next update.
Great.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to item number 61. Francis. Good morning. Is it still morning?
Okay, yes. Technically, for the next 20 minutes. Commissioners, good morning. Tab 61 is an informational item on the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee, May 31st meeting and the Senate Bill 339 Road Charge Collection Pilot Program. At the May 31st Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee meeting, the Technical Advisory Committee adopted an updated road charge rate to reflect inflationary changes since the initial rate was set and calculated under the Road Charge Design Recommendations Report in June 2023. The Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee approved the new rate change from 2.5 cents per mile to 2.8 cents per mile for the Senate Bill 339 Road Charge Pilot Collection Program that will begin this August. A summary of the research efforts the Technical Advisory Committee has been included in the book item. Additionally, I wanted to highlight that 2 new members were appointed to the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee in May. Commissioner Bradshaw is overseeing the Technical Advisory Committee as its new chair, and as Tanisha highlighted yesterday, Misty Rickwalk from the Karuk tribe has also joined the committee, replacing Axel Santana. I will now turn this item over to Lauren Prahota, the Road Charge Program Manager for Caltrans. She will be providing an update on the Senate Bill 339 Road Charge Collection Pilot Program.
Thank you, Francis. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As noted, my name is Lauren Prahota, and I am the Road Charge Program Manager for Caltrans. And as you are aware, gas taxes are critical to the funding that we use to support our transportation system. And that's all the things that state highways, local roads, transit, bike lanes, all the things we rely on to get ourselves around, with the notable exception of high-speed rail. But as we look to the future, we've relied on the system for 100 years, but it's starting to crumble a little bit. So if we go to our first slide here, it's important to understand the nature of that crumbling. There's really 4 aspects that are starting to unfold with the gas tax that are causing the issues. And it's important to understand those different 4 aspects as we start to think about solutions so that we can make sure that we're addressing all of those angles. So the first one is fuel efficiency gains. Our fleet, just in general, the gas-powered fleet are more fuel efficient. People are buying less gas to get the same number of miles. And that's fantastic in many ways, but it does mean less in fuel tax revenues. Secondly, we have an increase in electric vehicles, alternative fuel vehicles. Again, this is really critical to many of our state's goals, but these vehicles are not paying gas tax. They do have a registration fee that was put in place by SB1. But on average, Californians are paying about $300 a year in state gas taxes, where this registration fee is about $100 a year. So you see that gap in funding. Thirdly, inflation and the loss of purchase power. We have addressed this as a state through SB1 when we indexed the gas taxes to inflation. But at the federal level, this has not taken place. The federal gas taxes have not been increased since the early 90s. And then, of course, in general, just the construction price index tends to increase at a much faster rate than the general consumer price index. As these 3 issues continue to grow, we see this 4th issue unfolding, which is an increasing
inequity in the fuel tax burden of different people are paying vastly different amounts to use the roadway. Next slide, please. So the Legislative Analyst's Office recently put some numbers on these problems and how they're unfolding, putting a report out in December that noted as we get to 2035, a potential $4.4 billion annual loss in transportation revenue. And they politely suggested the legislature may want to start considering solutions to this issue. Next slide, please. One of those potential solutions is something that we as a state have been looking into called a road charge. Some of you are familiar with this, some of you are not. This is a per mile fee. So switching from paying per gallon of gas to per mile that you drive. And the way the state is looking at this in our research is that we're looking at it as a replacement for the gas tax, switching out the mechanism of how the funding is collected. We're looking at 1 per mile rate for all passenger vehicles so that we are bringing kind of that fairness back into everyone paying the same to use the road. Revenue neutral, not necessarily looking at a tax increase, really with the focus of stabilizing our existing funding. Now, all of these are policy choices. The legislature could potentially take a different perspective on these, but this is how our research program has unfolded. Next slide, please. So just kind of an overview of the pilots the state have done in the last 10 years. Started with SB 1077 in 2014, where the legislature directed us to do our first pilot. This was our largest pilot, 5,000 people statewide participated, and it was just kind of that general feasibility test of could this work in California? It was very successful. Participants had very positive takeaways. And the general answer was yes, this is something that could work for California. But it also uncovered a couple of areas for further study, and that's what we've been doing, building on that first pilot since that time, going into those areas of study. So we looked at how to make a user easier experience in our second pilot, really learning from that, the importance of building on existing business models and state processes wherever we could. And then last year, we focused on engaging our rural and tribal communities, really focusing on understanding the impacts to these communities, bringing their voice to the table. And then this year, the legislature again directed us to do another pilot, SB 339, which I'll get to a little bit more in depth in a second. Next slide, please. While the pilots get the first level of attention, we have been doing plenty of other research as well, though. And part of that is understanding the impact to various communities in a state as large and diverse as California is. So we've gone kind of a deep dive into research on certain areas, impact to disadvantaged communities, impact on rural drivers and the switch. We partnered with Commissioner Bradshaw and his team to take a look at supercommuters, including construction and the impacts there, looking at pass-through effects on fees on commercial vehicles, all these types of things, doing research and focus groups with different communities. Mostly the data show some really positive equity gains in the shift from a road charge or from the gas tax to a road charge. Right now, as I mentioned, under the gas tax, we have people paying different amounts. The people who are tending to pay more are those in disadvantaged communities, those in rural communities. The reason for this is because these communities tend to have less fuel efficient vehicles. And so they're currently paying more than their other counterparts. Switching to a road charge where everyone's paying the same brings that into balance. Next slide, please. This kind of illustrates the point really quickly. You can see under the gas tax, currently you have this range of what people are driving or paying to drive the same number of miles. Next slide. But in a road charge situation, you see that comes in. With that, some people pay more and some people pay less. Next slide, please. But in addition to understanding the data, which kind of gives us that broad perspective, it's also important to engage and to get insight into the experience and uniqueness of each community. So we've been doing a lot of stakeholder work with different groups within our state, tribes in rural areas through our most recent pilot, working with the trucking industry, working with nonprofits and equity groups and things like that. Specifically coming up, we're going to be working to get on the agenda with the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee. They have been super packed, so we've been working with staff about when that can next be on the agenda. Excited about that. And we have some listening sessions coming up as well. It's an ongoing thing to be engaging stakeholders at this time as we're studying this, as we're developing it, so they're at the table while it's in process. That has been very important from both CalSTA and Caltrans perspective. Next slide, please. So the SB 339 road charge collection pilot. The specific charge that the legislature gave to us in this pilot was to collect actual revenue from participants. This is the first time we'll be doing that. And so that'll be an exciting challenge. We are recruiting right now through the end of June, and we'll start onboarding participants come Monday, which is very exciting. And we'll have an official start August 1st. Participants can earn up to $400 by doing all the pilot activities. And I will say that has definitely piqued a lot of interest both in the press and in our signups. We're doing pretty well so far. Hopefully the final report from that effort will be out sometime next summer. Depends on how much time the analysis takes. But this will, as the secretary noted yesterday, hopefully be our last pilot, and will be coming to the end of the research the state has laid out as wanting to do in order to understand all the implications of this potential switch in our tax structure. Next slide, please. Another requirement of SB 339 was to submit an interim report to the legislature and to have CalSTA lead an internal administration discussion of a potential administrative process. Basically, how could this work? How would the state do this? So we will shortly be submitting this report to the legislature, and this outlines how, one view of how this could work from within the administration. Next slide, please. So the guiding principles of how we approach this process, working with multiple agencies such as the DMV, Franchise Tax Board, State Controller's Office, California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, is really to build on existing processes wherever possible. The reason for this is twofold. One, it helps us keep administrative costs down. It's a smaller burden for the agencies that may take this on to gear up because it's building on what they're already doing. Secondly, it makes it easier for the public because they're already interacting with these processes, and so they're already to a certain extent familiar. So it's less of an education lift in the rollout. This structure that I'm going to talk about in a second could support the transition of all 33 million passenger and commercial vehicles we have in the state, or it could be used for just a subset of vehicles, such as an EV-only RUC system. Next slide, please. So the higher level overview of the recommendations, the DMV would be the oversight agency for a passenger vehicle RUC. They would partner with third-party commercial account managers, which would be private agencies or businesses that would handle that day-to-day interaction with the public. This is similar to the DMV's current process with their business partners. If you think groups like AAA that may help people with their registration. So there's already kind of that system and structure in place. HAMS, we envision would have multiple account managers that people could choose from, whether it's a toll agency, whether it's something like AAA, usage-based insurance, variety of things. And again, with a variety of options on how people report their miles, ranging from very low-tech options, like a third-party odometer read, to very high-tech, such as in-vehicle telematics, giving people the control over their own data and choice and how much they choose to engage in data sharing. The enforcement process would also build off of an existing process. If you have ever, not paid your fast track bill on time, you get a nice notice from your tolling agency saying, please pay this. And if you continue to not do that, they will kick you over to the DMV to go through the vehicle registration enforcement process. There's a whole waterfall there. So again, wrapping stuff into what we already have working in this state, trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone. On the commercial vehicle side, we envision a system that's overseen by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. The reason for this is the agency that currently runs the International Fuel Tax Agreement process, or IFTA. The IFTA process is what is currently used to sort out gas taxes for trucks as they go across state lines. So it's currently in process, it's working already, and they are actually rolling out this year the collection of road use charges because last summer, Indiana actually passed a commercial electric vehicle road charge. So that is we're already seeing the beginning of that structure unfolding. In addition, we got a lot of input from the California Trucking Association on this is a process we like. We don't want to do a new, different process. We don't want to have to fill out another form. Can we roll it into something that we're already doing? And again, a lot of this is already in place, including auditing and other enforcement processes. Next slide. So that's a kind of brief summary of where we are, a lot going on. But again, we're hoping to wrap up the research that we feel the state needs to do in order to have a well-informed policy discussion by the end of this year, beginning of next year. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. That's a plethora of information, but really great. Those are all questions that we had all along of where are we? So thank you so much. Do we have any online public comment?
Nothing from our online attendees, no.
Okay, then we will take in-house public comment. William Walker.
Good morning, Commissioner, staff. Thank you. I don't think my vice chair is here. We both juggle trying to work. Oh, you are. I want you to allude to your comments in your report from attending this meeting if you want. Do you want to do that? Oh, you did. Okay, great. So then I won't allude to your comments. Please give your comments. I will say then, it's really important that this is done right. I drive Uber, unfortunately. Like, I wish I could do the transportation planning thing full time, but I guess I'm not cool enough yet. I drove 30,000 miles last year for Uber before we even get to what I drive as a San Franciscan that goes to school not in San Francisco. So obviously my life would definitely change, or maybe it'll be cheaper, who knows? But that said, it's just really important that the slide deck talks about ensuring that we're speaking to minority voices. It's important to have people in these documents that look like the folks that are going to be using the system and interacting with the different groups and the meetings that you've been holding. People like to be seen in the change, and I'll cede the rest of what I wanted to say to our Vice Chair.
Thank you. Martha Thomas Kelly. What's your puppy's name?
Teddy.
Teddy. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I've attended these meetings and I realize that sometimes projects come before the actual community engagement piece or we're given money and it's like, get it done, and sometimes that robust engagement doesn't get to be as robust as it should be, but nonetheless, there is engagement. I just feel that we need to be more inclusive of the Central Valley. Again, going back to when we're suggesting pilot groups, we really need to be representative of the people that are using these corridors, not just LA and not just the Bay. We are the breadbasket of the world, and we export and import, bring different materials, different raw goods, including ag. And there are many people that are all on the fringe of losing their businesses because of any kind of extra costs, overhead. And when we're considering these costs, we have to look at not only them, but also those that are using these corridors to be able to drive 2 and 3 hours to get just a decent wage because there aren't any wages in the Central Valley. I myself you know, I live in Merced, and if I moved 2 hours away, I would be getting considerable amount of raise in just what I do. But I have my own personal needs that I have to stay within the valley. So I think about this because when there's someone that's on the road and is growing mushrooms and is going to a vendor spot or a farmer's market in Pleasanton, which is 2 hours away, they get up in the morning, they barely have enough money to scrip and scrape to get to where they have to get in the hopes of selling their merchandise and then still get taxed. Sorry. But I just think that we need to be considerate of that. And we also need to be able to show more representation of the people that are actually going to be impacted. And it's not just DAC.
Martha, I'm sorry.
afraid your
time
time is
expired.
up. Yeah,
But all
thank
of
you.
us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yeah, fantastic presentation. Couple things that came up, and I've got one meeting under my belt, so I'm not claiming to be a pro yet, but I want to again thank the team and recognize the team and helping me get up to speed and prepared. Couple things I want to raise that came up at the meeting as well, that the way the gas tax is run, this is a outdated term, but it's all I can pull right now. You know, the gas tax being a flat tax is like, quote, a poor tax in the sense that it unfairly burdens those of lower income. I mean, because it's flat rate no matter what your income is. And so that's one of the things that is going to be coming up as we look at road use charge, vehicle miles traveled, things like that. The other idea is just for consideration and conversation is how is it for the same reason and questions that came up from Martha and William, good comments, I should say, about the equity of it and a phasing in, you know, that if you just do a one and done, it could really be a backlash. I'm really tempted to make comments about the DMV, but it would be inappropriate. So I'm gonna hold that.
We all feel you though.
I'll
Yeah.
hold that for a side caucus, but anyway,
We get it.
one share. Thank you.
Can I have Commissioner Tiffany first? Commissioner Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm just talking a little bit to Commissioner Bradshaw about this, but obviously the transition is going to be very difficult, and I'm curious how much has there been any study or as part of the research looking at how making this transition will affect the purchase of EVs? Obviously, that's that's the tricky thing, is that we're pushing for being, you know, 100% EVs, and yet a lot of people probably are buying them to save money on gas. So that's going to be tricky. I'm curious. I know you mentioned one of the states where they've made a transition, but do you have what other examples are out there? I mean, I think California is generally leading the nation in this area, but are there other states that have made a change to that has been effective, and how have they transitioned? How have they administered it? What can we learn from other states?
Absolutely. Two very good questions. So on the EV issue, this is obviously very important because we have critical goals of the state on the climate change front, and we don't want to slow those down. But I think there's been a lot of good work, particularly by UC Davis, in the space of understanding the reasoning that's going into people's purchase decisions. And that on the whole, the larger drivers of those decisions are the upfront purchase incentives, both the federal and state level, and access to carpool lanes. Ongoing costs do not register as much. And when it does, it's because, oh, I don't have to buy gas. Gas tax, you know, does not usually come into the mental, because most people are really not aware of paying the gas tax. So in terms of the ongoing gas tax impact, it doesn't register with most buyers. Therefore, it's really not a huge disincentive. Many people raise it as a potential concern, but I think the research we've seen shows that it's not going to have too much of an impact. This is, I think, really confirmed by some of the focus groups that we've done specifically with EV owners, who are actually some of the most positive people when thinking about the transition to road charge, and saying, because they get it. They're like, we get it. We need to pay our fair share in terms of road maintenance. We are using the roads. We do want to contribute fairly. As part of SB1, the legislature directed the UC system to do a study and report back to them on what would be the most fair way to charge EVs. And again, UC Davis did that study, and they came back with, we think a road charge would be the most fair structure because, again, it's a use-based fee. So it's tied to how much you're using the road. So I think we see overall that it is reasonably positive. We don't anticipate any huge disincentive on the EV uptake front. Secondly, all states are facing this problem. And so we're working with a number of other states looking at road charge as a solution. We are part of REC America, which is a 20-state research consortium. It's states looking at this. We also have another consortium, the East Coast or the Eastern Transportation Coalition, that's looking at this as well. We have 3 states that have moved to a voluntary REC program already: Oregon, Utah, and Virginia. And last summer, the state of Hawaii passed the first mandatory road charge bill. They will be transitioning all of their vehicles to road use charge by 2033. In addition, the federal government also has this issue. They have it even bigger than we do because they have not indexed the federal gas tax. So there's also a federal pilot that USDOT was charged with doing with under IIJA. So there's a lot of really interesting things going on. We're seeing pilots in Kansas, in Oklahoma, Minnesota, Connecticut, all over the country. We're obviously working with these states to understand like issues like interoperability and things like that. So there is a lot of movement on this topic, both in red and blue states. At the congressional level, you see both Republican chair of House Transportation Infrastructure and the Senate Democratic chair of Environment and Public Works, both supportive of road use charging, which how awesome would it be if that happened in more topics, right? So, and I think it's because people see the value of having a usage-based funding stream for transportation. You could go different routes, say like a registration fee. That's more of a public good approach. It has no tie to the use of the system. So, so that's kind of the state of the nation as well. There's just a lot of exciting things going on.
Thank you. I do think the road charge approach makes sense. It seems the most equitable. The one thing I was going to comment is that you talked about you're not seeing the concern about the gas issue, the saving of gas for EV purchasers when you talk to EV owners. I do think that as we go from the early adopters of EVs, and we're seeing it slow down right now, that the motivations for purchasing EVs and pushing them, till we get 100%, that may change. And so I think you need to keep that in mind, that current EV owners may have different motivations, doing what's best for the environment and other things. They're also probably disproportionately much wealthier than the average person. So as you move forward, that's going to be a bigger issue, I think, and just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's definitely something to monitor. Things change over time.
Thank you. I'll go to Commissioner Falcone and then Executive Director Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Lauren, for an excellent presentation. Very thorough, and appreciate your work and sharing kind of the big picture of what's going on, not just in California, but in other states and in the nation. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to relegate it to 2 because I know you're going to come back for additional updates. And that's one question: when will you come back, particularly given that you are going to be starting your pilot in August 1st, and so we will be waiting with bated breath as to what is coming out of that pilot. And then second, how many slots are on that pilot, and how did you socialize spreading the word about join this pilot project.
Yeah. I am happy to be here whenever the commission wants me. In terms of our recruitment, we are aiming for 800 participants, which we will be splitting into 2 groups. This is a specific requirement of the legislation. We have 2 rate groups. One rate group that was set, it's a flat rate set by the TAC, which they did approve a rate of 2.8 cents per mile. The second group is an individual rate that's based on the MPG of the vehicle. And so we are tasked in the legislation with reporting back to the legislature in the final report on the impacts of these different rates, behavior changes, and how they affect the state's revenue, climate, and equity goals. I think that's a really smart play by the legislature to lay out those 3 issues because they interact and conflict with each other in different ways. So it's really important to understand that. And this is why we often take the approach of talking about having different tools for our different goals so that we can achieve them in the best way possible. We are sorting through the signups that we've gotten, and we're intending to send out the first round of invitations to formally sign up those participants on Monday. And what we'll be looking at is we want to get a representation of the demographics of California in each group. So geographic, income, gender, race, and vehicle type, just generally across those. Now, we'll send those out. How many people actually sign up, we kind of monitor, because you tend to see across pilots this kind of transition rate of only about 30% of the people who actually said, oh yeah, I like this idea, to those who actually want to do it. So we'll monitor as it unfolds and try to get, as a completely representative group in each of those subgroups as possible.
Great, thank you. And I think Director Taylor, your question was already answered. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Cruz.
No, I just want to thank Lauren, and we had a similar conversation, I think, last week in a different forum on your work. And I think some of the questions were answered, but obviously my concern is just the impacts to the super commuters, as you alluded to, the folks who drive long distances, especially not just construction workers, but folks who live in rural areas. We all support the idea and the transition to zero emission, but I do feel that folks who are purchasing EVs should pay more, right? The $118 that they're paying now just isn't at the level that folks who are still driving gas-powered vehicles are paying. In addition, these are heavier vehicles, in some cases 1,000 pounds heavier than a gas-powered vehicle, and they're doing more damage and will be doing more damage long-term to our roads and highways. And hopefully we can take that into account. But I'm excited about talking about replacement revenue. The diminishing gas tax is a concern, and I think being told the first programs that will be impacted will be the SHOP and the STIP, which are important programs, as ATP as well. So we'll obviously support your work. I know it's going to be challenged because there's some concerns just with people about technology, and there will be a long lead up time. It took us 6 years to pass SB1. And, we need the time now to educate people on the benefits of moving to a road user charge and make them very comfortable with the idea before we move in that direction. So thank you again.
A lot of people are concerned with those communities that drive a lot, whether that's rural, whether that's Uber drivers, whether, people who have to get to work. And that's part of some of the complex realities of our state with housing issues and things like that. I'm not going to say road charge can 100% solve all of it, right? But I think what we've seen through our research are positive movements, right? Because they're driving that much under the gas tax. They'd still drive that much under road charge. But what we tend to see is those groups are currently driving less fuel efficient vehicles. So they're paying more already on top of those miles that they're driving. So we do see that positive step. And if anyone's interested in understanding, the impact to your direct budget, which we all are, and we do have a calculator on our website where you can input your own vehicle and the number of miles that you drive, and you'll get an estimate for what you're currently paying under the gas tax and what you could pay under several road charge rates.
That's great.
So, because it all comes down to the budget, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you to Commissioner Bradshaw for taking that on. Fun times ahead. Yeah,
Indeed.
thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to tab 63 through 66, Environmental Matters. Bridget.
Thanks, Chair Eager. Commissioners, tabs 63, 64, 65, and 66 are action items to accept the final environmental impact report for the Diamond Springs Parkway Phase 1B project, Sacramento County WAEV Innovative Freight Terminal Project, Ocean View Transit and Safety Project, and the North Hollywood to Pasadena Bus Rapid Transit Corridor Project, and to approve these projects for future consideration of funding. Staff reviewed these requests and recommends approval.
Thank you, Bridget. Do we have any online comments on 63 through 66?
I do not see any request to comment on any of these items. Thank you.
Any comments in the room? Do we have any questions or comments from commissioners, either in person or virtually? Then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
That was Bradshaw and Cruz. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz, Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. Tim, it's Tim. Okay. We will turn it over to starting with tab 67. You're going to go through the first section of 72, or you're going to go all the way through 89?
I'm going to start with 67 through 72.
Okay.
And then turn it to Casey for 73, and then I'll pick up again.
Okay, go.
Tab 67 through 72 are action items for projects requesting initial allocations for project phases that exceed the programmed amount by more than 20%. I'm presenting tab 67 through 72 with a recommendation at the end, but please note there are slight edits to book item to the book item for tab 67 and 72. And as I expected, my computer's frozen. What I wanted to say while it's coming back, I know we're under a time constraint today. I'm going to go ahead and reserve instead of going through all of my notes, I'm going to reserve that time for any questions that you may have.
We appreciate that.
It's almost back. It's been doing this for the last 5 minutes off and on. Just briefly, again, these items are greater than 120s, most of which are for construction support and capital. The total amount being requested above the programmed amount is approximately 28 million. And sorry, the total increase above the programmed amount for these 6 projects is above approximately 24 million. Commission staff has reviewed the projects and the book items for tabs 67 through 72 and recommends approval.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any online comments?
We did not receive a request to comment on these items.
Any comments? 67 through 70. Any comments in the room? Any questions or comments from commissioners? Then I will entertain a motion for 67 through 72.
I did have one question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
on 69, as I was reviewing the item, noticed that there was an error in the modeling regarding this project, and it seemed like a substantive increase. Could somebody from Caltrans or Tim speak to that? I just thought maybe it would have been caught earlier in the estimations, cost estimations for the project.
Looks like Dave is here from Caltrans.
That was for project 69. Can you repeat the question again?
Well, it's about so I just noticed that the cost increase is regarding modeling or change of modeling in the project for the improvements.
Yeah, so basically at the project report stage, we run up an estimate and see where we're at as we go through that approval process. That was about a little over a year ago. During that, we're going through some transition with staffs, and there were some error and rolling up that estimate. And unfortunately, in this project, it was a pretty significant number value. We went through the project changes. We went through some changes in the project in that last year to deliver the project. It really wasn't, I'll say, recognized until we started working up that final estimate almost a year later. And part of that is a result of it's just the way the stuff linearly works out. You're not really revisiting those quantities and add estimates until you go through and do those final runs. You're in that year, you're getting your permits, you're cutting your plan sheets, you're doing those other things. So it really truly wasn't recognized until that last couple of months as we're rolling up that final estimate. And it was unfortunate.
Any other questions? And I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Bradshaw, second. Cruz, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you. Casey, 73.
Commissioners, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Commissioners, tab 73 is an advance allocation request for $45,454,000 for construction of the State Route 99 Delano to Pixley 6 lane with pavement rehabilitation project. This project will close an existing gap on Highway 99 by adding a lane each way, creating 3 additional lanes. In addition, this project will address safety, increase the efficiency and effectiveness of moving goods throughout the state, reduce air quality impacts, and is consistent with the State Route 99 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. The department is requesting an additional $3.4 million above the programmed amount from the State Transportation Improvement Program's interregional program. In April 2024, the department updated the engineer's estimate to capture final design revisions and to reevaluate the project's scope of work. The reevaluation found several items that were not eligible for SHOP funds, resulting to an increase in STIP funds. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends your approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We did not receive any public comment for this item.
Have any public comment in the room? We have any commissioners that have comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Tiffany
I'll make
and
that
Commissioner
motion.
Bradshaw. Yeah. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz, Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas, and thank you to Caltrans for all the work that you did on this particular item, making sure everything was in the right place. And we appreciate it. We'll go back to Tim on 74 through 89.
Thank you. I was going to say Queen Eager. I shouldn't say that. Thank you. Commissioners, tab 74 through 89 are all projects requesting supplemental funds. I'll be presenting them together with a recommendation at the end. And while I'm presenting these at a very high level, please feel free to ask any questions of the projects to help with additional clarity. Please note that there are yellow replacement book items for tab 84 and 85. Before you today, there are 7 capital outlay support supplementals, 2 supplementals to award the contract, and 7 supplementals to complete construction. The total supplemental funds being requested for these items is just over $34 million. Please note, after further consideration, Commission staff would like to pull tab 74. This is due to the fact that there is a related allocation time extension on today's agenda that is being deferred until August. Staff would prefer to take these 2 actions for this project at the same meeting. Commission staff has reviewed the projects and the book items, and I'm going to correct this by saying for tabs 75 through 89 and recommends approval.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on 75 through 89?
We did not receive any request to comment on 75 through 89.
Have any comments in the room? Do we have any questions or comments from commissioners? And I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Bradshaw? Oh, you
sorry.
have a
I
comment.
had a
Yeah.
comment on you. Yep.
Yes, Commissioner Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's something, if I count up something like 25 supplementals or something we are approving here. And I wanted to ask specifically about a couple of that are in this group, 84 and 85. And frankly, I might have asked questions of some of the others, but these in particular, both are from District 8. And so I had some questions. I know that tab 85, for example, this is a second supplemental. I think there may be a couple others that have second supplementals. And so I guess it's concerning to me, and I'm just curious, why there is a second supplemental and it's not handled under the first supplemental. So that's just a question mark for me. Particularly after, G12 budget augmentations were done, and then normal contingency funds, which were used available as well. So I'd like a little bit within each of these supplementals, there's an explanation as to why there is a supplemental, why there's a cost increase. When I read it, it makes sense. But there's we look at a lot of these, there's a lot of money involved. So I'm just looking at these two in particular, and then I have some, I guess, general questions and comments, but maybe I'd hear a little bit more about on 84 and 85, why we are where we are.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Catalino Pinning, District 8 Director. So, yeah, ready for the question.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
As far as, I'll first start with the first project, 84. That's on I-15. This is a pavement rehab project. It's within the city of Hesperia in Victorville. And the biggest challenge that we had here is the differing site conditions, basically based on the information that was shared. As designers, one of the most important thing is as-built plans. Unfortunately, the as-built plans did not match what's out there actually. So with that in itself, so we had to make some adjustments as far as the design is concerned. So, the lessons learned from this particular project was the fact that when we did make adjustments down the line, there is kind of like a domino effect. It affected what we did, and then eventually impacted some of the work that was also ongoing. So with that, one of the things that we really want to make sure is making sure on this particular route, it's looking at project history. Have we had any issues similar to differing site conditions on this particular route? So that's what we're doing right now on these projects along I-15. And then also for verification, we're looking at, do we need to do some supplemental work, like, for example, subsurface, doing additional coring or boring on the location. So that's for item 84. And then also there's the Bright Line West project that's on, within this corridor. So we had to work on some of the items there to make sure that we're not in conflict with the future project. So we did make some adjustment on this project, which eventually impacted some of the resources. We had to do some additional engineering work on this. That's why we're also asking for additional resources for construction support. That's for item 84. For item 85, that's along Riverside 74. This is a two-lane conventional highway, and basically it's a mountainous route. There's a lot of unknowns as far as one of the biggest challenge that we had was the rocks or big boulders along the route. So when that happened, we did work. There's roadway item and there's also structure item because of the concrete barrier. We did do some borings. Unfortunately, we did not extend to some of the culvert work that we did. So we did encounter some problems there. And then also, one of the things also that we encountered is the traffic control, the staging of the project. Given it is a conventional highway, we wanted to keep it open. Staging it was really problematic for us and did require additional work on that element, so.
Thank you for the explanation. You, in the beginning, you mentioned lessons learned, and that's really, I guess, what I'd like to zero in on a little bit, not just for your district, but for Caltrans in general. When you say lessons learned, is there a mechanism for those lessons to get disseminated out within the entire district, your entire district? And if so, how does that get out there? So, other people that are doing projects within your district, don't make the same mistakes if you can learn from the lesson.
Yeah, usually when we do have a construction final report on these projects, so we do share that with the designers across the board as far as, what are some of the lessons learned, for example, for these two projects that we're talking about. And then another project we have an upcoming project on 74, a follow-up project. So we're already sharing that information to the design team or also to our construction team. These are the things that we've encountered. So final reports is we do share that information with the team, and then we get together, with everybody within the department, the design team, and making sure that we share this information.
And maybe I'll turn this question to you, Mike. On a broader sense, and again, I don't mean to be picking on these two projects, but there's many projects that I'm sure are asking for supplementals. How does Caltrans in general learn from various supplementals or situations you run into so that trends are identified? Maybe there's categories where we can learn lessons. Is there a mechanism for getting, the word out through all the districts so that maybe a year from now, we don't see as many supplementals and we see an improvement in that area? That's my general question.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Tiffany, and I'll speak in general. So one, and I think I can assume that, there's a concern, and I'll just say we share the concern on the number of supplementals that we have. We are aware and talking about them. And so there are, so Chief Engineer Donna Berry with her team, they have a project delivery advisory committee. Basically, it's all the district directors along with her design, construction, right-of-way, environmental, et cetera, deputies or division chiefs, and they meet together. We also meet with Director Tavares quarterly to talk about the delivery in general. But as far as those lessons learned, they are shared. There are also design, construction, project management boards. They talk about that. So that's all the districts sharing the information. That said, I will admit, though, part of the challenge, and is actually eye-opening for me, even though I'm on the inside. We had an executive board meeting on Wednesday, and we have hired 7,000 people in the last 3 years. And so part of it is if you've been scarred by a problem, you don't forget those, right? But as you're coming in new, sharing that. So it's one, sharing amongst our different projects, but also bringing new people on board and sharing that institutional knowledge as well. So we're going to be looking into this issue. Director Tavares has asked us to, pull together and look at this, and we're going to meet with him as far as what are we going to do to try to address delivery supplementals and the overall process. And we'd certainly be happy to share that with the commission in whatever appropriate form, workshop, an item with staff, whatever you would like. But we will be preparing this information for our own use and happy to share.
Great. And I appreciate that. And um, with your blessing, Madam Chair, I think that we should take a deeper dive into this, and maybe at a future workshop or agenda item, we can take a closer look at this going forward.
That'd be
Thank you.
great. And I know we've had those discussions of every time something comes up and what did you learn from it? It would be nice to be able to see all that together, saying, here's what they learned and here's what they did differently this next time. So that would be great at a workshop. Thank you. Thank
if-
you.
If
Commissioner
Mike's
Tiffany.
amenable, we can bring that back in August.
August. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners for 75 through 89? Then I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner
I'll make a
Tiffany?
motion.
Commissioner Bradshaw? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. We'll move to item 90, and if those of you out there in the audience see that we're up here eating, I know it's cruel and unusual punishment, but we are gonna just try to power through and not break for lunch. So we're snacking up here as we try to get through it all. So if you'll indulge us, I appreciate it. We will go to tab number 90.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
There's Ben.
Tab 90 is an action item to.
I don't think your microphone's on.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tab 90 is an action item to approve the supplemental allocation of $400,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the ITS improvements in Daly City, Brisbane, and Colma project in San Mateo County. Staff has reviewed this request and found it to be consistent with program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval of tab 90.
Thank you. Have any public comment?
We did not receive a request to comment on the item.
Any comments in the room? Anything from our commissioners on the dais or online? No, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Falcone, second. Bradshaw. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby. Commissioner Lugo.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann. Commissioner Tavaloni. Commissioner Tiffany.
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. Tab 91, do we have Anya? There's Anya.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tab 91 is an action item requesting a supplemental allocation of $305,000 for the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program's Blue Line Rail Corridor Transit Enhancements Project. Specifically, the Blue Line feeder bus service charging infrastructure for Route 925 component in San Diego County. This supplemental will allow the agency to complete the construction phase for this component. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Programs allocation policy and the program update. Staff recommends your approval of tab 91.
Thank you, Anya. Do we have any online comments?
There is no request to comment on the item.
Do we have any comments in the room? And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Falcone.
Just to make a motion to approve.
Any other comments or questions first? No, then I'll
Second.
entertain a second. Roll call, please.
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Bradshaw.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz, Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. Now we will go to John and 92 through 94.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm moving along faster than I realized. Go team. Okay, hang on a second. Okay. 92 through 94 will be voted together. 92 and 93 are both action items to approve amendments to the 2024 SHOP. For this meeting, the shop amendments were split into two separate book items for processing, but we're presenting them together. They're essentially two parts of the same thing. This, they'll add 43 new projects and revise 78 projects in total. And oh, just real quick, because I know we're going to go fast through allocations. There is an interesting one in here. We are amending in our first carbon reduction program project into the shop. So it's exciting. It's going to get an allocation a little bit later. And then there's a bunch of other stuff we're doing as part of these. 93 or that was 92 and 93. 94 is the shop baseline agreements. And so with that, there are minor changes on the change list to all three of these items. And in accordance with those changes, staff recommends approval of 92, 93, and 94.
Thank you, John. Have any online comments?
There's no request to comment on these items.
Thank you. Comments in the room? Have any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Cruz made the motion. I have a second. Commissioner Falcone? Roll call.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner, oh, thank you. Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tabelloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Gordino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. Beverly, 95.
Commissioners, tab 95 is an action item to approve the State Route 152 Local Alternative Transportation Improvement Program in Merced County. In May 2024, the commission approved the department's request to rescind the proposed freeway route on State Route 152 from Santa Fe Grade to State Route 59. Under state law, local and regional agencies may develop a local alternative transportation improvement program when the rescinded freeway route results in excess state-owned properties. Proceeds from the sale of these excess properties can be used to fund local transportation projects. The Merced County Association of Governments is proposing two projects as part of the State Route 152 Local Alternative Transportation Improvement Program. The first priority is a 1-mile multi-use path in the area, in an area with no dedicated walking and biking facilities and with heavy freight traffic. The path will provide students with a safe, separated facility to walk and bike to Merced College. The second priority is a transit operations and maintenance facility, which will provide critical operational support to the regional transit system. This facility will allow for increased efficiency and the future deployment of a zero-emission fleet. Both projects are regional priorities in the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy and benefit the area where the original freeway route was proposed. Staff has reviewed the proposed Local Alternative Transportation Improvement Program and finds it consistent with program statute. Therefore, staff recommends approval.
Great, thank you. Are there any online comments?
There's no request from our online attendees to comment on this item.
We have one in person, right behind you. You can go ahead and come on up.
Morning again. In regards to this item, I approve of the building and the acquisition of having safe routes and being able to have the walkability. But one thing that I have to say today, and as I've been listening to all these expansions and money that's coming into a lot of the corridors, we do not have any mitigation or any kind of utility road space for any of our freeways along 99 and in these corridors. With all the things that are happening in climate and the emergencies that we've had and the impacts of all this change and widening in infrastructure that we're not used to, because frankly, we haven't had a lot of movement in our areas. But over the last 2 years, all I've seen is that people are putting their lives on the line, whether it's the person that's fixing the road and helping build the road, highway patrols, the people that are on these road spaces. And when an emergency happens, there is no thoroughfare for emergency vehicles or for the zipper truck to even get through to get and move and create a space for safety. I think that moving forward, we need to have those considerations. And when we have these appendages and these additions of infrastructure, we have to start looking at creating a space for utility. for safety and a easement so that these vehicles can get to and from and out of those spaces expeditiously to save lives and to preserve the integrity of our spaces. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment. Appreciate it. Do we have any other public comment? Have any comments from commissioners or questions? Then I will entertain a motion.
Falcon moves.
Falcone, second, Tiffany. You have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas, and good job, Merced. It's a great project. Tabs 96 through 98.
Commissioners, tabs 96, 97, and 98 will be presented and voted on together. Tab 96 is an action item to delete the Mountain View Transit Center grade separation and access project in Santa Clara County from the 2022 Local Partnership Competitive Program. Cost escalations have prohibited the city from pursuing this project as originally scoped, and the agency has withdrawn the project. This action will return $25 million to the Local Partnership Competitive Program and boost the 2024 program cycle. Tab 97 is an action item to deallocate $11,123,000 from the Los Angeles Metro G-Line Bus Rapid Transit Improvements Project in Los Angeles County. The revised scope and amended fund contribution from the Local Partnership Competitive Program were approved at the May Commission meeting. Approval of tab 97 updates the vote box to accurately reflect the revised scope and deallocation of funds. Tab 98 is a concurrent action item to amend the baseline agreement for the Los Angeles Metro G-Line Bus Rapid Transit Improvements Project in Los Angeles County. Approval of tab 98 authorizes staff to incorporate the revised scope and reduced fund contribution from the Local Partnership Competitive Program if approved under tab 97. Staff has reviewed these requests and found them to be consistent with program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval of tabs 96, 97, and 98 in that order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any public comment?
There was no request to comment on these items.
And no comments in the room? Do you have any questions or comments from commissioners? We have a motion from Commissioner Cruz. I think we had a second from Commissioner Tiffany. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, 99 through 104. Kayla, there you are. I looked
Hello.
along there, I didn't see you, right in front of me.
It was last minute. Commissioners, I will present tabs 99 through 104 together and ask for a vote at the end. Tabs 99, 100, and 101 are all project scope amendment requests in the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program for the Southern California Hydrogen Fueling Stations, Phases 1, 2, and 3 project in San Bernardino and San Diego counties. For the sake of brevity, I will summarize that the scope of the project is adjusting, resulting in a return of $16,875,000 to the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. The funding is commensurate to the adjustment in scope, which is in line with program policy. Tab 102 is a project scope amendment request in the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program for the EV Oasis South A project in San Bernardino and Kern counties. There will be no change to the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program funding amount, but funding will be divided among the two new projects and programmed scope will remain consistent. Tab 103 is an action item to approve a 2022 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program amendment for the Otay Mesa Port of Entry project, the Southern California Hydrogen Fueling Stations project, and EV Oasis South project. The Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project was originally programmed with two components. Caltrans and the San Diego Association of Governments are requesting that a third component be created to advance an early works project from existing scope and funding. Additionally, Caltrans is requesting and commission staff are recommending supplemental funding of $51,657,000 be added to the project due to significant cost increases the project experienced during design. The TSEP program allows Caltrans to recommend supplemental funding to already programmed projects out of their available state share of TSEP funding. The remainder of the program amendment for this tab is to programmatically address the scope changes to the Southern California Hydrogen Fueling Stations project under tabs 99, 100, and 101, and the return of $16,875,000 to the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, and the scope change to the EV Oasis South project under tab 102. The changes addressed in this program amendment are consistent with the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines. Tab 104 is a request to approve 7 baseline agreements for Trade Corridor Enhancement Program projects. Staff has reviewed these requests and finds them to be consistent with Trade Corridor Enhancement Program guidelines and commission policies. Therefore, staff recommends your approval of tabs 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, and 104.
Thank you, Kayla. Any online comments?
There's no request to comment on any of these items.
Thank you. Public comment in the room? Any commissioners have questions or comments? Then I will entertain a motion from Commissioner Falcone.
Yes, and also thank you to staff for working with agency staff on a number of these items regarding Otay Mesa. So motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Bradshaw with his mouth full. Yes, so we'll do roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz, Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Douglas. We will now turn to Naveen for 105 through 107.
Commissioners, tabs 105 to 107 are action items that will be voted together. Tab 105 is a program amendment to the 2022 Solutions for Congested Corridors program as provided in the book item. Tab 106 is 2022 Solutions for Congested Corridors program baseline agreement. The Los Angeles Metro Light Rail Core Capacity and System Integration Project in Los Angeles County, which is programmed for $20 million. Tab 107 is an amendment to the 2022 Solutions for Congested Corridors program baseline agreement for the Santa Barbara US 101 Multimodal Corridor Project, Three Creeks. This project is programmed for $118,632,000. The approval of tab 105 necessitates an amendment to the original baseline agreement approved by the Commission in January 2024. These requests are consistent with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends your approval of tabs 105 to 107 as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen. Have any public comment?
There's no request to comment on these items.
None in the room? We have any comments or questions from commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Falcone, Commissioner Cruz. Public, no, not public comment. Roll call.
Thank you.
No more public comment.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavaloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Guardino. Motion is approved.
Thank you, sir. This time we are going to take 108 through 141. Who's going to do that? Casey?
I'll go.
It's all
ahead and do
you?
that one.
Okay.
Okay. Tabs 108 through 141 are various program allocations as referenced on the agenda and the change list. Please note that tabs 130 and 131, project number 2, were withdrawn prior to the meeting and will be reflected on the final change list. So those are tab 30, project 2, PPNO 0999H in San Diego, and tab 131, project number 2, PPNO 3507 in Stanislaus. Staff has reviewed these requests and found them consistent with each program guidelines. Programs guidelines. Staff recommends your approval of tabs 108 through 141.
Thank you. Do we have any online comments?
There are no requests from any of our online attendees to comment on these items.
Okay, thank you. Then in the room, we have Marcella Renzi, who would like to comment in person on 115 and 119. You can do them both together.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here to speak on behalf of VTA. And first, let me apologize for violating the principle of keeping quiet when you're ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm going to restrict it to our profound thanks to District 4, the best Caltrans district, the department, our TPA, MTC, for supporting us both in the carbon reduction program and in particular, the vote for the sound walls. This is the last set of legacy sound walls from the 80s to be built in Santa Clara County. And I'm so happy we are finally here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any comments or questions from commissioners on tabs 108 through 141? We can take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Bradshaw and Tiffany. We'll do roll call.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz, Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby, Commissioner Lugo,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Tavoloni, Commissioner Tiffany,
Aye.
Chair Gordino. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Now we're going to take 142 through 171. Aiden.
Oh, perfect. Commissioner, if you don't mind, we can actually take tab 142 all the way through 177.
You think? Yes, you may.
Perfect.
Take
All
us
right.
home, Jaden. Take us home.
Absolutely. Commissioners, tabs 142 through 177 are time extension requests, time extension amendments, and post-fact time extensions for multi-funded projects, as well as projects from the following programs: SHOP, STIP, Local Partnership Competitive and Formulaic Programs, the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, Solutions for Congested Corridors Program, and the Active Transportation Program. Please note the change list for tabs 142, 146, and 164. Please also note that Project 1 within tab 166 was withdrawn prior to the CTC meeting, but after publication of the change list. Additionally, for projects 3 through 5 within tab 145, staff will recommend approval of the time requested as reflected in the time extension recommendation table, whereas projects 6 through 8 within tab 145, staff will recommend approval of the time requested as reflected within the book item. Staff would like to acknowledge the SHOP allocation time extensions in tab 142, which contain 225 allocation time extensions. For tab 142, CTC staff will be recommending approval of all the 2-month time extension request while deferring the remaining request to the August 2024 CTC meeting. CTC staff require additional time to evaluate the time extension given the number of time extension requests received. Please note deferring these time extension requests will not impact Caltrans's project delivery schedule. Staff has reviewed tabs 142 through 177 and recommends approval of the time extensions and recommends approval of the time extension amendments and post-facts as exceptions to their respective guidelines.
Thank you. Well done. Do we have any public comment?
There's no request to comment on any of these items.
Any comments in the room? Do we have any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yeah, just to, open. I could help. When we look at the volume, how many projects and all these extensions, 2 months extensions, just not to try to pin you down on specifics, but what is Caltrans doing to try to avoid that? Do you anticipate an increase in cost? Well,
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bradshaw. So certainly we well aware time is money. So that's all, there's an awareness of that. The 2-month extensions, I think are typical of the June meeting because we're still delivering for the fiscal year. And so just timing wise, some of that is just needed to complete the process. I think though that there are more time extensions in that further out than we would typically see, and we're going to be looking into those. And so I mentioned earlier, we're kind of bringing ourselves together to look into not only the supplementals, but this issue as well. And so if we're going to do a workshop, I would suggest we could include this issue in there. I will say with these time extensions, the projects will be delivered. We'll continue to, to move forward, with these. And I think if you look at if you include the 4-month extensions, we have over $1 billion that will be delivered, not quite on time, but if I'm going to be charitable to us, nearly on schedule.
It's just, it seemed the volume was pretty high. What was the number? Over 200?
So there was 225 total allocation time extensions for the shop, and I believe 64 of them were for 2 months.
Yeah, right.
Yes, correct. The rest were over 2 months.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
That's abnormally high, right?
Madam Chair, just real quick.
Yes, sir.
Maybe along the same lines, Mike, is as we look at these projects, obviously some of the extensions, especially 225, is a little worrisome. How will that affect future projects that are being for construction? Is there going to be domino effect as far as seeking additional extensions? I mean, it's hard to predict, but I know, but that's the
Pushing everything.
Yeah, it's a great question. So Mike Johnson answered this a little bit earlier because it is a domino effect on everything. But what we're doing is we're regularly updating. So projects by their nature change during the course of, right, it takes 7 years to deliver a project through the processes that we have. And so they're regularly updated. And so whether it's the funding estimate and needs, whether it's the design schedules, and then the velocity of the funds that are going to be needed to deliver those, all the way through to the construction and then the condition, all of that is updated multiple times. And then we report back to you typically at least annually on where we are. So it is something that we are constantly monitoring and then making adjustments. But to your point, it will have some impact, but what we will do is then we will change our plans considering that in order to deliver that program. And so that's what we're going to be talking about going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I will entertain a motion.
Also moved.
Which one did we start with? 142 through 177.
Make that motion.
Commissioner Tiffany, Commissioner Cruz. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Grisby. Commissioner Lugo.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann. Commissioner Tavoloni. Commissioner Tiffany.
Aye.
Chair Guardino. The motion is approved.
Thank you. I understand. You're good? We
We're
don't need to
okay.
do
We do
anything?
not need to do 108 through 141 again. We are okay.
We're good.
Oh,
119 is good?
119 is good.
Okay. Thank you. So I think we got to the end. Thank heavens. And we just want to say thank you certainly to the commission staff. We know this was monumental to get through this. We want to thank Caltrans and all of our partners. Everybody came together. And what we did was we came together and we created 24,000 jobs today. So congratulations, all of you. And we do have one public comment on other matters before we adjourn today, and that's Jesse Gotham.
Thank you, Chair Eager, Director Taylor, and Deputy Director Kiever. My name is Jesse Gothan. I'm with the City of Sacramento Public Works Department. I'm here today to provide a brief update on the I Street Bridge Replacement Project. The project is the City of Sacramento's and West Sacramento's most significant bridge effort in a generation. After 10 years of project delivery, it is now ready for construction. However, we have a shortfall. The city has partnered since 2014 with Caltrans Local Assistance, who has funded the preliminary engineering right-of-way from the local highway bridge program. In 2019, the cities and Caltrans certified the CEQA and NEPA documentation and completed the architectural design with the great involvement and much to the satisfaction of the community in early 2020. The vision was established for a new movable lift bridge that would provide a multimodal crossing of the Sacramento River, connecting the cities and the counties, reducing emissions, reducing VMT, be safe for all modes, and become a new source of community inspiration on the Sacramento River. The Caltrans Local Bridge Program soon after increased our construction programming to $212 million based upon the then construction estimates at the time. In late 2020, the city was also fortunate to receive from the commission $15 million from the competitive local program partnership that would help match the bridge funding. However, as steel and other source materials experienced inflation, our construction estimates have increased beyond the capacity for the cities or the local bridge program, and we have an unfunded shortfall. The city has applied.
Have 10 seconds left.
Thank you. The city has applied to the bipartisan infrastructure program requesting additional funds to close the funding gap. However, it is now June of 24, and we have not received the results from the BIP program. So our deadline to allocate the program funds has expired.
Thank you.
So I thank you for the opportunity to voice this.
Thank you so much. Do we have any online comments?
We do. I'd like to call on Brian Rosen. Brian, you're free to unmute yourself and comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes, thank you.
Excellent. Hi, commissioners. Brian Rosen here. Now that you're in Monterey, I wish one of you would drive the 4-mile section of Highway 1 between Sand City and Marina that the Surf Busway would bypass. This short 3-lane section of freeway is sandwiched between 2 long sections of freeway that have 2 lanes on both sides. You will find that in the afternoon, slow-moving traffic heading from Monterey to Marina speeds up as it enters the wider freeway. You will find that there's a traffic backup only in one direction in the morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. You will find that traffic flows the rest of the time. You will find that only a few MST buses per day are slowed down significantly. I counted 4. MST's analysis discounts bus and shoulder as an alternative due to freeway overpass structures preventing widening. Not true. Bus and shoulder may be affected with synchronized meters put on on-ramps, but it would only be needed in one direction for 2 hours per day. TAMC Director Muck says, we don't want to benefit one mode of transportation at the expense of another, but surf will hurt rail. Check out the 8th Street overpass where double track exists underneath. There's not room for both path uses. Surf will preclude rail according to Coastal Commission staff analysis. One misrepresentation after another has been made by TAMC and MST. Railroad tracks will be left in place, etc. Funding should be revoked due to misrepresentations made to the public and government agencies. Fort Ord is where big development is slated. Development means big money. Both TAMC and MST have land they want developed near a planned 5th Street station. Politicians want development. Surf is all about development. Under state law, transit access allows for more development. People aren't going to use this bus. It's slow and inconvenient.
Sir, your time is
Thank you, sir.
expired.
Your time is up. Appreciate your comments. Do you have
Thank
any
you.
other public comment?
Yes, I see one other hand raised at this time. It's a call-in number ending in 2837. If that is you and your intention to comment, you may unmute yourself at this time.
I'm sorry. I wanted to apologize. I didn't realize I was on. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get on the computer. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you. And that concludes all requests to comment at this time.
Any other public comment in the room? With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Oh, wait, one more comment.
One more thing,
Commissioner Falcone.
thank you Monterey, for hosting us. And where y'all gonna be in August?
San
San
Diego.
Diego.
Yeah.
Bring your sunscreen and your sunglasses and everyone have a safe trip. Oh.
Thank you.